What do you get when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyman?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube.
Welcome to Couch and the Rube, presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. Football is back, and as the crowd gets more sparse at Michigan State football games, and you can't rely on that body heat from the person next to you, Muskox is here for you. You'll want a Muskox flannel. You've never had comfort like this. The quality, the durability, and you look good too. Even me and Jason look good in these in Muskox flannels. And Couch and the Rube listeners can get $15 off their purchase by using the promo code HOFF, H-O-F-F. That's at gomuskox.com, Gomuskox.com, promo code HOFF for $15 off. Jason, how you doing, brother?
I brought my Muskox flannel, but it's a little too hot in here. Like, literally, I know I say it when I fuck up the questions or hot takes, but it literally is hot in here today.
Yeah, I don't know if
they put the
heat on already.
Yeah.
It's not great.
It's controlled, so we just come in and it's a fucking hot as hell in here. Anyway, how are you, man?
That's how this show's going to go, just to give people
Dude,
a little bit
show.
of a heads up. Yeah, it's going to be
yeah.
no more of a shit show than what we saw on Saturday at Spartan Stadium.
Peacock.
Am I right?
From what I hear,
or on Peacock.
right, people weren't thrilled about that either.
I thought I was the only one. I mean, the app kept dropping out, and I was like, is it just me, or what's happening here?
People have got to get this together. Like, if you're going to move to streaming, if companies are going to do this
And charge
money for this, right?
Yeah.
If this is going to be the way, then have your stuff together. Like, there are a lot of bars that don't even have Peacock yet. This just isn't. It's just like a soft rollout, and it doesn't work. It's just not. They're just not ready for this
rollout.
stuff. I don't know. Like today, I this isn't one of my hot takes, but I just
Bonus.
saw a bonus hot take. Yes, right. I just saw that Fox is the USC Colorado game, September 30th. Big noon on Fox.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, except noon Eastern time on Fox, a game out west. Like, it's a 10 a.m. local time start in Colorado, a 9 a.m. start. I mean,
Start tailgating at 5A.
yeah, if you're the leagues, and I know you've sold your soul to the TV networks and the media rights deals, maybe grab one of those fuckers by the collar right now and just say, hey, look, like, this is taking Big Noon too far. We know you didn't know how to manage college football with your baseball postseason originally, so you came up with this asinine idea where the warm-up act is bigger than the main course. Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing I just tweeted out a few minutes ago, think about this. If Fox televised concerts, they would put the warm-up act after the headliner. That's the way they do things. Big Noon is not a thing. It's a thing they've tried to create. We've sort of bought into it. It doesn't work out west. It's part of the reason that 3:30 or 7:30 makes more sense for big games nationally. Somebody needs to grab these guys by the collar and say, look, you know, there's a place that is just too far, and this is it.
These companies have us by the balls because we love football so much, but when you start making it hard for me to find games and all this other shit, like, I will just forget about watching the games. I just don't care. I will seek out games that I want to watch, right? But if you see there's another game on, you have to get outside of your cable app, go into another app. It takes like 5 minutes or something, right? It's just, you guys got to figure this shit out first.
And something
soft launch.
Something they're going to want to do on Peacock is what the Premier League does on Peacock. And the Premier League, by the way, the broadcasts are flawless, and maybe that's because of their partnership with Sky Sports, and the actual feed is coming out of England, and it's not Peacock trying to do anything. But you're going to want to put the NBC games also on Peacock so that you can, if you're already on the app, like, sure, if you're on cable or you're on your, whatever, you can get the NBC game. But if you're on Peacock, you can just get everything that's an NBC affiliate right there. There's lots of things they need to improve on. I haven't watched a game on NBC or on Peacock yet, a college football game. I've never had any issues with Peacock, but I'm going to try and do that soon. So I
really did forget to sign up for it like at 3 o'clock. I was like, oh, shit. Guess I got to get on the old Peacock.
Yeah. Well, as we do every week, we begin with our hot takes before we get to yours. This show is going to test us. There's a 30% chance this is the last couch in the Rube ever. Because I eliminated most of the bonus takes. So if you don't hear your bonus take, that's why. I cut out a few that really were repetitive, and or if I thought your bonus take was better than one of your other three, maybe I just made it your third take and eliminated one of your others.
It's hot in here, though.
We have a few bonus. It's hot in here.
Yeah.
Jason's got a lot of reading to do. But
and I have to talk about the Lions.
It's an important show. There's a lot going. So let's begin with our hot takes. Do you want to go first?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Michigan State could go 2-10 this season. And we'll know how possible that is after this weekend against Maryland. Because Maryland is good, like actually good. They're not Washington good, I don't think, but they present some of the same challenges. Tagovailoa is an upper-tier college quarterback. They're winning. They got good vibes going. They'll at least test MSU in a lot of the same ways that MSU failed last week. And this, to me, is the biggest week of Harlan Barnett's career. Not just because whether he ever gets a shot at the MSU job, but I'm talking about after this year, too, whether he gets a Mid-American Conference head coaching job. Like, if he's able to keep the wheels on, he becomes somebody that's at least interesting at some level. This is the biggest week of Noah Kim's career after last week. Because what happened last week was not entirely his fault. He was under siege from the beginning, but he did not look good. He never really found a rhythm. He didn't do anything to make him look like he's going to be a guy at Michigan State who they can build around or can get them any place they need to go, especially a team like this that is going to need somebody who can root them out of some trouble here and there. And this week is partly about winning, but it's also about just seeing competent and somewhat promising football that the wheels aren't coming off, right? It is so hard to get kids to focus, to watch like extra film, to do all those sort of things when things aren't going their way, when there's a lot going on.
You have to meet a coach, do a one-on-one. And
yeah, these kids start going through the motions, and they might be focused on game day, but you don't win on game day. Like in college football, you win because of the week of preparation and what you put into it. And they're probably not going to win at Iowa. Rutgers, and we'll learn more about them this week as they face Michigan, but they look capable and solid. That's a road game. Then it's Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio State. I mean, Nebraska is the one team in there that might be in rough shape too, and that's a home game, and so maybe that's a game. So, 3-9. We'll see what Indiana is by the time they get there. Maybe 4-8. But if they're going to be more than that, if this season isn't going to get dark, we'll know it this week. Not necessarily 100% by victory, but we'll know it by how they compete, how competent they look, how organized they look, the energy there. It's going to be a weird environment at Spartan Stadium. I did the Muskox live read on that, but I'm not kidding. Like it may be homecoming, but there's going to be some empty pockets. The student section, we'll see how they come out. It would be good for those kids if people gave them, one more week of real strong support and understood that last week was just a shit deal in a lot of ways. Like they were going to get clobbered after watching that game, whether Mel Tucker was on the sidelines or not, and people will be annoyed this week, and it'll be a different conversation because Mel Tucker's contract, he wasn't going anywhere. But I don't think it would have looked quite like that. I think that was a little different.
It was definitely I had a worst-case scenario, and it wasn't that, and I feel kind of embarrassed, Graham, that I actually took Michigan State and the 16. Now, I didn't know Washington was going to be that good. I don't know if there's a worse opponent they could have faced than Washington, right? Because a part of me is like, man, Barnett just didn't look like he knew what he was doing. But you also have to remember, and I think you mentioned in your column or takes after the game, that that was a crazy week for Harlan Barnett. So I don't want to judge him on that alone. It was a shit show. It was embarrassing and it sucked. But you have to remember what Barnett has gone through in the week. Now, if it happens against Maryland Saturday, all bets are off. I totally understand. But I would say you got to go and support these guys and see, because Washington couldn't make the college football playoff. They're a good team. They're, like you said, they were going to get hammered with or without Tucker. So my whole thing is, like, can't we just pump the brakes a little bit about Barnett? There's no way he's getting a shot. and maybe see what he's got after a week of not. I mean, he's like still meeting with each individual player during the week, and then, oh, here's a headset. Oh, by the way, here's the 2013 team. Oh, by the way, here's D'Antonio on the fucking sideline, which I don't know help or hurt. But I get how it was depressing, but where else do you go from here?
No, a lot of this is still on Mel Tucker. Now, these coaches were around and helped build this program, but this was never going to be a year. Even if you're winning, realize why you're winning and maybe make that move. DeBoer went to Fresno State, was fantastic. Now he's fantastic at Washington. A little lesson is Michigan State starts to look down the road. But I get that frustration, and we'll find out about Washington. I think October 14th is their game where they host Oregon, and so that's the first time we'll really see is like this because they look like a national title contender.
Well, against Michigan State, sure.
They did, but some of those were like well-covered passes that those receivers went up and got, and they were just pinpoint. I mean, not all of that was bad play. Some of it was. There were some wide-open dudes, too, but there were some great plays. I mean, at one point, Penix got drilled in the end zone and like completed like a 38-yard bomb on the money as he was getting hit in the chest. It's like, okay, that guy's good. Yeah. And so, yes, we will find out. That's why this week.
But we knew he was going to come in and be good. But
you don't want to overreact to last week. There's lots of reasons to react negatively to it. But I'm talking about, like, I'm not going to get into the who might replace him, probably might replace Mel Tucker, who might be the next coach beyond Harlan Barnett, until probably after the bye week. Let's see where they are after they play Maryland and Iowa, and there's a week where I think whether it's worth even paying attention to, not worth paying attention to the wrong word, whether it's worth considering the possibility that this staff could dig themselves out of this or not, we will firmly know after the next 2 weeks. Not whether they're going to do it, not whether there's, but we will know pretty quickly. And I just think, given all that went into last week, the fairest thing to do is to take in another week of evaluation against a team that might be like Washington light and see how they respond, see how much better they are. We'll see. It was that was a dark, dark day, one of the more deflating games, because I think the hope people had was that the program would show some promise and some fight, and maybe it couldn't beat Washington. I'm not sure they could if they played 10 times once. I'm pretty sure they couldn't right now. But
people were complaining about the boos going into halftime, but are we sure it was boos, or is it people going, I mean, like, what are you supposed to say after that half of football as a Michigan State fan?
It was rough.
You know?
It was much rougher. And
I understand you don't want – maybe they're just booing the Mel Tucker situation and not Noah Kim. Who knows?
Yeah, and I'm like you. I thought minus 16 was way too much for Washington coming into Spartan Stadium, and it was like a minute into the game, I was like, no. People, I'm on the wrong side of this. This is not – I apologize for it. I think I even tweeted that I apologize for advising that, and would regret that immediately. What is your first hot take?
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
Go Lions, restore the roar.
Yeah, speaking of another gambling loss that I'm embarrassed by, I thought the Lions-Seahawks game, I know, is +5 and a hook, but I just felt with everything that's going on, I know the hype before the season, but going into Ford Field, I knew it was going to be electric, and I felt the Lions are a better team than the Seattle Seahawks. But I guess I was wrong. Because I was dead. You said the 5.5 that you would take Seattle. Other sharp people, and I'm saying you're sharp, but other sharp people were saying the +5. But I'm like, give me a reason why they're missing their left tackle, their right tackle, every tackle. We can't get a fucking pass rush. And by the way, Dan Campbell, I understand you want to go for it on every fourth down. I can't get mad at that because I've said let's go for it. But I think it may be a little too much. And by the way, in the fourth quarter, why are you playing for a field goal? If everything's about grit and we need to take chances and you're going to go for it on fourth down, why do you get conservative on a team, Seattle Seahawks D, that you were pretty much doing what you wanted to when things were flowing on offense? It wasn't, and the same old Lions thing. I understand because it reeked a little bit of the same old Lions. You know why, Graham? It's because I was touting this shit all week long about the 5.5 doesn't mean anything and the crowd is going to be electric, which they were. But I sat there yesterday and I felt fucking foolish again. So the same old Lions, when Seattle scored and Detroit came back and scored, that's not the same old Lions. The same old Lions to me is sitting on my couch feeling like a fucking asshole. And that's what I did yesterday. Am I getting off the bandwagon? Maybe. Am I going to get back on? Sure as shit. You know why I can do that? Because I'm a lifelong Lions fan. And you can't tell me whether I can do it, boo, or fucking complain about the Hutchinson hold at the end of the game. Why? It's a hold. I can fucking complain about it. Did they lose the game because of the hold? Maybe. But why can't you? Why do people feel like after the game they have to tell you what the fuck you can complain about? There was a legit hold at the end of the game. And by the way, lastly, Graham, the Tyler Lockett touchdown in OT. If Tyler Lockett, if that were a Detroit Lions player who bobbled it on the sideline, no review, no challenge at all before we get out of there. Oh, no, it's Seattle runs off the field. Yeah, we're done. If Amon-Ra St. Brown caught that fucking ball, there would be 85 replays. We would have been there for 15 more minutes, and we would have been fucking going Seattle's ball.
Been touchback the other way.
Touchback. Yeah. You can't tell me no different. Any different. Anyway, I'm excited about the season. I'm just telling you how I felt sitting on that. I usually feel like an asshole, but I felt like an extra asshole yesterday sitting on the couch after that Lions game.
Yeah, and I don't think you needed to, though. And this is, and again, I'm not telling you how to feel because you are a lifelong Lions fan. You should feel how you want to feel.
Yeah.
But I do think a couple things happen. One, and this is a little transitive property, when we watched how for 3 quarters the Rams gave the 49ers everything they could handle.
Sure.
That's a weird situation. So I don't know, and Seattle played that horrible first game. I thought Seattle was going to be a really good team coming into this year. I still think they are, and I think the Lions were better than them and blew this game with the turnovers.
It's the pass rush, though. You can't let Geno Smith or anyone in the NFL, as bad as some of these quarterbacks are, you can't give them all that.
But they also had 2 turnovers that led directly to touchdowns. And that you cannot do that and win in the NFL. It's 14 points. The Lions,
It was the Singletary coming out of half. It deflated the crowd.
And then the pick six.
People were coming back with fucking hors d'oeuvres and stuff looking at the fumble. Jesus. Yeah. It just took you out of the game, and then it just...
When you lose a game in overtime, when you give up 14 points on turnovers, you should have won the game.
But if you're going to get that kind of hype in the preseason, which I was always skeptical, I'm not saying maybe they'll win the rest of their games. Who knows? I'm just saying currently as we sit right now, I'm just saying you have to win games like that to change my mind as a 44-year-old Lions fan. That's all I'm saying.
They got to get to 4-2. The schedule sets up really well out of the first 6 weeks, where anything less than 4-2 is gravely disappointing.
In my 47 years of watching, they didn't even try to replay the last play in OT. It's just crazy.
I don't get the conservative play from the 50-yard line with a minute to go with 3 timeouts. I don't get letting that clock, not using a timeout, not letting that clock run so you don't run the next play till there's like 25, 26, whatever there were seconds left. That was for an aggressive team, for a sport that allows its overtime to come down to a coin flip.
That's bullshit.
You got to go after.
Again, you can't complain about the overtime rules. Yes, you can.
Yeah,
they're ass. Detroit would have went down and scored a touchdown off the opening thing. I don't care. It's a terrible way to end an NFL game.
Both teams should see the ball in overtime, regardless of what happens. That should be 100% the way it is. I'm going to stay on the Lions. I got another Michigan State taking a minute, but I'm going to stay on the Lions here because you got into this. This is a little bit of playing the hits, but I want people to think. So injuries starting to pile up for the Lions, right? Offensive line, defensive backfield, running back. This is not bad luck. This is the NFL. The Bears were missing their entire defensive backfield by yesterday. It's week fucking 2. All right? If I were an NFL player, I would not care how my team did because I'm going to be out for the year by week 6 anyway. The Lions are lucky Montgomery's injury is short term. Because while he's out, he cannot get hurt again. It's a good thing.
But they're not the only one going through injuries.
Correct. So pivoting is the Lions and their fans make their evaluation on Jared Goff. Understand this. He's got to be able to win a Super Bowl with half of the starters hurt and with half of his offensive line and without Ben Johnson, who's going to be a head coach by next year. Otherwise, you don't have your guy at quarterback because that's what NFL teams have by the playoffs. You're missing half your starters, half your offensive line, and any coordinator that was a hot name the year before you don't have. Your quarterback has to be able to overcome all of that. Do you hear that music?
Oh, sorry. Yep, my bad.
Okay. I don't know.
I was coming out of somewhere. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Anyway, I was like, what the fuck's going on? I thought you were like,
no, the board.
I thought you were looking to play the violin or something. Anyway, that is.
Sorry, I screwed up your old take. My bad.
No. But my point is this on Jared Goff. Like, I understand that there's going to be some injuries. People are going to talk about excuses. This is the NFL. This is why if I would draft all my 5th and 6th and 7th round picks would be defensive backs. If I happen to get a Pro Bowler, he wouldn't play till week 10. Like, this is the NFL. It sucks. It is receivers and quarterbacks. Those are the guys that stay healthy. Everybody else is pretty much toast, and half the team is gone. So when you're evaluating Jared Goff, understand it doesn't matter the injuries. He's got to be able to elevate them regardless of what's around him, or he isn't your dude. Period. That's. I just wanted to say that one more time.
And I agree, but I mean, like, the injury bug has been hitting a lot of teams. You see these guys going down left and right. You just can't complain about it. I mean, like, the Seahawks offensive line had 2 guys out.
Yes,
and they couldn't even get a pass. The Lions couldn't get a pass rush. So it's just. Yeah, no more excuses on that front. But I just don't know why you can't sit there and question a blatant hold. I mean,
no, you can. No, they should call it. If you're going to call it in the first quarter, you should call it in overtime. All
right. Well, the reason why I ruined your take, I apologize again, is that you sent me something as I was coming in, and I only had a couple other hot takes. One was gambling related. Why does the Illinois kicker kick with a fucking barefoot in 2023? Is that still a thing? Anyway, our boy Brian Frentz, Iowa, had a great offensive weekend. And so, is this real, what I'm about to play? Should I just play it? Okay. I don't think – okay.
You all have had fun with this 25-point obsession, and I get it. I do. But if I'm not mistaken, we just dropped 41 on Saturday. So maybe it's time to grab a hold of your little step ladders and go ahead and climb out of my ass for a while.
That's beyond fake. That's AI.
Is it?
Yeah.
You sure?
I could tell at the beginning.
Okay.
There's no way Brian Frentz is going to say, get a ladder and get out of my ass for a while.
I would dream it. Maybe you're right.
When you sent it to me, I'm like, oh, there's no way. And listening to it, I can hear, I think I'm pretty good at can tell AI a little bit. But.
So if that's AI, then we need to cancel AI. Cancel progress in this world. We can't get screwed by this.
You ain't lying, because that was, if you watch the video, it's dead ass on.
Yeah, we need to cancel AI.
Yeah.
And then he'd be
smart people are freaking out about it, so that tells you there. They're like, hey, we need to,
No, there are lots of reasons. I'm glad I'll be dead in 30 years, and AI is at the top of that list. I just don't want to deal with it. I'm being optimistic.
About to say,
yeah, being really optimistic.
Anyway, but it would be funny if he did drop that,
especially after scoring against Western Michigan.
That would have. I would have thrown every Brian Ferentz asshole take I have. I would have been like, all right, you know what? Maybe he's onto something.
All right, my third and final take. There are a lot of things to consider about Michigan State's future in football. And there's some things I think that are important to watch this year. One is, during this season, can they find a quarterback? Because the likelihood is if you change coaches and you've got 3 quarterbacks, 2 of them are probably going to leave, most likely. And so who you choose is probably the one guy that sticks around. And if Noah Kim winds up showing us something very different than what we saw Saturday, and with 2 years of eligibility after this year left, that's 100% fine. If you think Sam Leavitt, if you're the coaching staff and you think Sam Leavitt is a next-level talent, better than Caton Hauser, then you skip over Caton Hauser. You go to Sam Leavitt. And you try to keep that guy in the program who's from the West Coast, who's going to have opportunities to go elsewhere. If you think it's Caton Hauser, they're going to have to look at multiple guys really quickly here, unless Noah Kim is snaps back to who he was in the 3 previous halves of football. And I'm not sure he's going to, because he doesn't look like a guy who, when everything is breaking down around him, can make something out of nothing. And that's a lot to ask of a quarterback. They might not have a guy ready to do that, but that's essentially what they're going to need. The other thing to consider when you start thinking about coaches, and I'm not going to start getting into names, and there's some guys that are intriguing out there already, but I want you to think about this. With the transfer portal now and the NIL and the ability to leave, to be in the portal for 30 days after a coach leaves and all that stuff, who you choose as your coach is a little different too. Because you don't want to choose a coach who doesn't view Michigan State as their final destination job. You don't, even if they're a hot young coach that you think could come in there and win, You don't want a coach that in 5 years their ties are most of the South or somewhere else, and they go out west and they go somewhere else, and your program gets ripped apart again by a coach leaving, even if they're winning.
But sometimes that can be good because if someone else wants your coach, that means some good things are happening to you.
Correct.
There.
But you got to think of it in terms of who's also wants this as a destination job, because Michigan State ought to be a destination job. The best example I can give this is in basketball years ago. If, like Bill Self, when he was hired by Illinois, Bruce Weber, Illinois was a destination job. Bill Self, not. He winds up at Kansas, which in basketball would be sort of the equivalent of this. And think about that team that with D. Brown and all those guys, Darren Williams, that the first year under under Bruce Weber went to the finals and only lost one game and all that stuff. In today's world, that team would have all been in the transfer portal the second Bill Self left. And so hiring Bill Self, who has aspirations to go elsewhere, doesn't do you any good anymore. So Michigan, I'm just saying, just consider that a little bit. Ultimately, you want to hire the best coach right now. You want somebody who can make you win. That's a hard thing to find. It's a hard thing to do anyway. You don't want to overthink that. But if all things are equal, you like a couple guys, you need to think about how that person views Michigan State long term. Because not only can you screw your program by having a coach who can't keep his pants on or who loses too much, but you can also these days hurt your program by not allowing yourself to have consistency and continuity because they move on. And I'm just saying that is one other thing to consider.
But these guys all say, like, oh, yeah, I'm a Michigan State guy forever, and then something else comes along. I mean, you can tell people whatever you want them to hear at the time, but that doesn't mean. I just think it's a good thing if you end up having other teams universities come after your coach, because that means some good shit's going on here. And I'm okay with that every 5 years.
Look at where their roots are, though. You can kind of see it. I mean, I'm not saying you wouldn't have hired Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker had Big Ten roots, Midwest roots. Like, Mel Tucker looked like a fit.
At $5 million.
And, yeah, he looked like a fit in certain ways. In other ways, where his background had been in terms of the high-profile schools he'd been at, maybe it wasn't a seamless fit. But that's neither here nor there. He's done now. Anyway, that is my do you have a third hot take?
No, we're good.
Okay.
I had a third. I did 3.
Did you do 3?
Yeah. I did State Lions, miscellaneous.
Okay.
Brian Ferenc.
All right. We're good. You don't have to explain yourself.
It's fucking hot in here.
Yeah. All right. Let us dig into our listener hot takes.
Eric Schultz up first, of course. Number 1, anyone who watches an offensive scheme like Washington's and still thinks that Jay Johnson deserves to be employed at this school should give up watching the sport. If Graham counters by mentioning poor offensive line play, I'm going to lose it.
I want Eric to lose it.
2, we are so lucky Mel got fired when he did. This wouldn't have looked that different had last week not happened. It would have shown he had no clue, and we still would have owed him $75 million. 3, Kalen DeBoer makes $4.3 million. Offer him the remainder of Mel's deal.
They're going to have to give him a raise at Washington. And there's a guy that is that a destination job for him? Them coming into the Big Ten. Certainly the long play by Big Ten schools should have been to keep Washington out so they could hire DeBoer. That would have been playing chess. And maybe not very well at that. But let's go to number 2 here. The idea that Michigan State's lucky Mel Tucker got fired when he did. That this wouldn't have looked any different last week against Washington. I disagree with that to some extent. Like they were not going. I don't think they were going to win that game. I don't know if they were going to be very competitive. I don't think it would have looked quite like it did. I just think it would have been a little bit different. But how much different? Not enough to not have people wildly frustrated and concerned. And you're right in this sense that if that had happened with Mel Tucker, he wasn't going to be on hot. He wasn't going to lose his job because if they owed him too much money. And not only that, nor should he. The idea was he's trying to build into something. You know, if you reacted every week to every time a game went horribly, there'd be a lot of coaches who get fired willy-nilly. That said, there would be a lot more people doubting him after last week, legitimately. And again, the season would have had to play out. They might have been fine. They might have gotten it together. Maybe that was a matchup-based thing. Maybe when they play Michigan and a more run-heavy team, they would have held up better and be like, oh, well, okay, this team is closer in certain ways. Maybe by the time they played Ohio State, would have been okay, and people would feel differently. And the difference between Mel Tucker and Harlan Barnett is Mel Tucker would have had the time to still sort that out, and I still would have held firm to the idea that 2024 and 25 were the judgment days for Mel Tucker. But I certainly don't think it's a bad take right now to think a reset is best for Michigan State in the long term. Now they're going to have to make the right decision in a little bit and get the right person in, but
they're going to be gun shy with handing out that much money again, though.
You don't need to hand out unless Nick Saban himself wants to come in there. And now, again, proven head coach, Power 5 job. Kalen DeBoer, that guy might be worth it. There's a guy who, if this year at Washington, and again, if they get to the playoff, he won't be available because the timing isn't there. Like sometimes guys are only available because, people aren't going to leave their school if they're in the playoff. So he may not be available, and I'm not saying Michigan State would get him or anybody would get him or he'd even leave Washington. Washington's a really good job. They're moving to the Big Ten. It's a great place to coach. I'm not saying he's going anywhere. But, yeah, it is. There are very few people out there who I think are worth considering that sort of money. And in the world where you want to spend your money on your donor money on players, perhaps, I don't know if there is any coach who's worth it.
Dominic next. Number one, Charbonneau saying people who mention the blue wall can shove it was such an awesome burn. Really owned the fan base. You're right, Matt. Woj is completely unbiased and one hell of a writer. Speaking of facts, Mitch Albom has never told a lie. Appreciate you taking us to task. 2, this football program is a goddamn frozen cadaver. I am so sick of this shit. Unprepared and uncoached, it's a fucking embarrassment. This isn't a player's failure either. It's a coaching one. It's an administrative one. 3, let's have some real motherfucking conversations here. And yeah, I'll say it. I care about how much money you fucking make. The fact that Jay Johnson and Scotty Hazelton both make north of $1 million for that product should be a fucking FBI case. And bonus. No, I'm just still talking. To recap, Hazelton, Johnson, and Kapilovic make a combined $3.35 million per year. You have a defense that gives 14-yard cushions, an O-line that couldn't get a push on Tracy Gold, and an OC with the creativity of a Shart. Unreal.
Dominic.
Tracy Gold
delivers.
Reference.
Yeah.
Man.
Delivers in his writing as always. Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with anything. Look, it is the fact that they look like they did. Now, again, if Washington winds up being, and I think I wrote this in the quick takes, Michigan State has to hope that's like the best team in the country and maybe the best team in the country this century, right? And then you're like, well, that sort of thing could happen. And they got overwhelmed and it was a bad matchup. I think the biggest problem from the game on Saturday was not even their defense. Their defense faced an elite offensive scheme, coordinator, coaching, quarterback, and receivers. And they weren't ready for it. There were times where they were right there and still got beat, but they weren't good enough to hang with it. Their offense, however, is another matter. Like that to me is almost a bigger problem because they could do nothing. And when Noah Kim looks like that, when the offensive line gets nothing, I mean, they did not protect him. They didn't get a push. And this is like 9 years of this stuff for the most part now. That is incredibly frustrating. And there's an argument that D'Antonio should have to be back for this, that he should have to watch some of the stuff that he helped create, like you sit here and watch it too. That part of things I think is the most discouraging. If this had happened to the defense, but the offense had put up 21 points at least and had some drives and you'd seen some push and there were some moments where you go, that's starting to come together, it would be a lot easier for people to stomach.
Alan Perlstein next. Number one, the Tucker era was worse than the John L. era. 2, Scotty Hazelton's defenses are the worst Spartan defenses I've ever seen. And 3, the Tucker Kapilovic offensive line development continues to be a dismal failure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to stick up for the offensive line here. It's just not good. They got some younger guys, maybe some other guys that start to move into the lineup. I think that they've got to look at some other things if it's not working with the older dudes. The Tucker era was worse than the John L. era. So the thing that John L. never had was that 11-2 season, right? He never had the year where they were. Now he did have one year where they were 8 wins or something like that. So, but he never.
pound for pound, the Tucker it's kind of worse, it feels like.
The way it ended, certainly right now, we're in the moment. That would be a good evaluation, like to really go down.
Because if you were like back in the day after John L. was done, I'm like, okay, thank God MSU has to never go through that and something embarrassing again. It's like, well, let me tell you what happens in 2023. I'd be like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, Gavin Haas, number 1. It's Kate Hauser's team from this point forward. This fan base hyped up Kim after his performances against, checks notes, CMU and Richmond. Kim isn't the answer at QB. He does more negative on the field than positive. 2, Saturday was the most fun I've ever had in East Lansing. The environment was great, and the tailgating for the first time was more enjoyable than I could have expected. 3, this football season is a lost cause at this point for MSU. At this point, there's no reason to not play your young players and give reps to the players that will be crucial to the program in 2 to 3 years. Going through the growing pains now instead of later is the best option.
Yeah, but you're not going to do that because you have guys coaching for their lives, and if you play guys who aren't ready, they're going to get hammered, and it's going to get ugly and worse.
Audition. Man.
Yeah. And the Kate Hauser point, I still want to I'm not defending how Noah Kim played. Right, that it was not a good performance. Kate Hauser did not play against the starting unit from Washington. I'm not saying they
99-yard drive though.
They need to evaluate Kate Hauser at some point in a game. I truly believe. Okay,
that works.
But
they start next.
They need to do it to me against the top unit when the game's competitive, right? You need to see an apples to apples comparison. And look, it was an alarming performance from Noah Kim. It was from the whole team. I would be stunned if he doesn't at least still start this week. But I would have a plan in the first half to get Kate Hauser in there. I think that becomes fair because some guys are gamers. And you may need, this particular team may need a gamer more than any team in a long time.
Kenton next. Number 1, Noah Kim looked like he's had a case of the yips. He often had good protection and drastically overthrew open wide receivers. He did that early on in week 1 until he settled down. If this is his new norm for MSU, or if this is the new norm, MSU is in big trouble and needs to give Hauser a legit shot sooner rather than later. 2, does Hazelton's one scheme, everyone gets a TD defense hold Maryland under 700 yards this week?
Total, what's the over-under? What would we set that on Maryland total yards? It went 713, program record last week. I don't think that's going to happen again. But let me say this. As somebody who's covered historically bad defenses at Western Michigan when I lived in Kalamazoo, by the way, there were weeks where you thought it couldn't get worse, and then they set the mark to next. It sometimes
bend, don't break, and then break.
It can get right back up. I would put the over-under at 550.
Ooh. I was going to say 525.
Okay, 550.
So I was just shocked by that.
Yeah.
All right. Man, take the over. Brad Who's from Muskox. Number 1, Graham's sleep levels will be as low as the new parent until MSU hires a new coach. 2, fans will be thrilled with whomever Michigan State hires just so they can move on from the Mel Tucker era. And 3, Noah Kim bounces back with a massive game Saturday and celebrates a night out wearing a Muskox flannel. He has more hands on him feeling the softness of the flannel at Rick's than he had hands on him all day at Spartan Stadium.
Well played, Brad. No, I know it would look good in a Muskox flannel for sure, as would we. And by the way, you can look good in a Muskox flannel by going to gomuskox.com and checking out their latest fall offerings. You can also bundle flannels and hats and shirts at gomuskox.com/caw-caw. gomuskox.com/caw-caw for some great savings and bundles of Muskox flannels.
I thought it was Hoff now.
Hoff is the promo code. Okay, I should make this clear for people. Hoff is the promo code. If you're just buying a flannel, Hoff is the promo code to get $15 off that flannel. The savings are separate. There's no promo code. If you're doing a bundle, the savings are even more. And that what's the word? A quick key, so to speak. That shortcut is gomuskox.com/caw-caw to check out their bundles and look as good as Noah Kim will at Rick's this Saturday night. I disagree with Brad's number 2. The idea that fans will be thrilled with whoever Michigan State hires just so they can move on from the Mel Tucker era. Because I think this will be under scrutiny more than any hire they've had in a long time. People got behind Mel Tucker. They talked themselves into Mel Tucker. I thought it was a decent hire. I still think, knowing what we knew at the time, it was a decent hire. But this is such an important hire that
But the Tucker thing was kind of a bang, like Fickle said no, and that's like pandemonium. Everybody's at the airport looking at shoes, It's just all happened out of nowhere. Then he beats Michigan, and they're like, well, Jesus, we better keep him.
This will be different. Beat Michigan the first 2 years. I mean,
is Ebeling writing a book about this? I mean, come on.
This doesn't seem like it's in Ebeling's wheelhouse.
No.
Or maybe it is in Ebeling's wheelhouse. No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
Paul, next. In addition to the mess Tucker has caused right now, he's tainted the nostalgia of 2021, for me at least. It's hard looking back at that year finally without getting sick every time his face is shown. Maybe it'll change. Time will tell.
I think this is a really good hot take, and I think a lot of people feel this way. Like, does this change how you feel about that 37-33 win over Michigan and the Kenneth Walker year and the Kenneth Walker game and just everything that you experienced because you're so annoyed at Mel Tucker? I think in time there will be fondness for that game particularly. I don't know if that in some of the moments of that year, the problem is so much of that year was built around the aura of Mel Tucker, the deep water, at Miami and all that stuff. And it's going to be tied together. I do think it taints it for sure.
Mike DeShelter next. Number 1, after that colonoscopy of a loss, can things get any worse for MSU? 2, should Noah Kim still be the starter? 3, how many transfers after next weekend?
So after next weekend, and here's the question is, like, that's 4 weekend. Well, first of all, I don't think it'll be transfers yet because the transfer portal won't open these guys until Mel Tucker's officially fired. However, what will happen after week 4 is if guys want to shut it down and preserve the year of eligibility, guys who haven't used a red shirt yet, they'll be able to do so. Now, for a lot of these guys these days, the COVID year no longer exists. They will have redshirted already. It won't do them any good to shut it down after 4 games. But if they haven't redshirted and they think they don't want to be there, it'll be interesting to see the roster after next weekend for sure. And can things get worse? Yes. Don't test that.
Rye Dog next. Number 1, MSU's pregame hype video / music before the team comes out of the tunnel is ass. It's clunky and doesn't get the fans loud at the right time. Thunderstruck was an improvement over swag surfing, but it's not the crescendo it should be when the team runs out of the tunnel. 2, what did Mel Tucker say when he first came to MSU? You need 4 difference makers or so on each side of the ball to compete for a championship. I think we have 0 on either side.
This is a really good one from Rye Dog, and I think a statement to examine a little bit and part of the problem. There's a chance that those young receivers develop into that, but, great talents, the Charles Rogers of the world, don't need the time, right, to develop into it. But even a Plaxico Burress who had, was an older guy when he arrived, who dropped a lot of passes his first year, took a minute to become really the dude he was. So maybe there is that there. Nathan Carter is a guy who has shown some real flashes, looks like a good Big Ten back. I wouldn't say he looks like a great Big Ten back, and we're a really true difference maker. The caveat to that is the offensive line has been rough to the point that it's hard to judge. Is he Kenneth Walker? I don't believe so. On defense, I want to say guys like Simeon Barrow, that they haven't looked like it up there. Maybe some of those young guys in the secondary, but you're right. It's not a team that has guys that you go, boy, that guy's a problem. That guy's a first-round pick. That guy's a second-round pick. They just don't have those guys right now, at least ready to go, and that's a big part of the issue.
Bill McLeod next. Number 1, I disagree with you, Couch. Last night was bad, but the low point was Minnesota last year. 2, Maryland is a must-win Saturday. And 3, Jaden Reed is a great fit in Green Bay.
Jaden Reed's going to be a good pro for quite a while as long as he stays
40-1 for Rookie of the Year preseason. Remember that?
That's not bad at all.
I don't know if it's still that. Obviously, it's probably lower, but
Minnesota was a low point last year in a lot of ways. And this was a different kind of low point because I don't think I still as frustrated as people are, as disappointed they are, and a lot of people the way they felt about certain coaches before last week, they're not going to change that feeling. I think they also felt bad for everybody last week, so that's different too. It's not the Minnesota game last year, but it's a different kind of low point. It's a different kind of deflation because, a year ago, the week before the Minnesota game was the Washington game where things became apparent that they weren't as good as everybody had hoped. And this was another measuring stick moment. And it was a measuring stick moment that measured out as it did.
Professor next. Number 1, MSU hasn't had a serviceable offensive line in 9 years. How is that possible? And bonus, Nick Saban is MSU's coach next year after Bama fans run him out after this season.
Boy,
I think Saban's done after this year.
do you?
Yeah.
It could happen quickly for him. He could decide he didn't want to do it anymore. I mean, he's in his 70s, I think, right
Not
now.
having a quarterback. He's just like, fuck this. Watching Dion.
If he
It's
was
like
if he
unbelievable.
was 10 years younger, I would say the MSU thing was a real possibility. That's just based on conversations. I know that when he talked with Alan Haller a year ago, and he sort of recommended Mel Tucker, somebody to look at, not a year ago, whenever that was, 4 years ago. And of course, Haller posed the question to Saban about whether he consider it. I mean,
What if we hypnotize him and tell him he's 10 years younger?
Yeah,
Maybe even go 15.
I would
and then
be,
wake him up.
I would be very curious to see whether he would want to do that, because I do feel like he still has a soft spot for Michigan State. His buddy Izzo is still here.
Absolutely not.
But if
He'd rather just retire and come hang out here.
Today I don't think there's any chance in the world. 10 years ago, it would have been interesting to see if there was some sort of way to entice him.
All right, Nick Palmer, number 1, caw-caw. 2, caw-caw. And 3, appreciate you. Fart Soup next. Number 1, streaming games is ass. We went to multiple places out here, and not a single bar or restaurant had Peacock. 2, Mark D'Antonio will be wearing a headset by the Rutgers game.
So the Peacock thing is a problem, that it's not in bars and restaurants everywhere, that even though places can now get it, bars and restaurants can, and that came into play just a little bit before the season. Places have to retrofit their operation to get it. I was talking to a guy this weekend who owns multiple establishments in the Lansing area. It's going to cost him like $100,000 to set it up so he can get Peacock. And not every place is going to do that. And
it's because Peacock charges that.
And if you're out of the way, well, it's also so you can get it all at once, right? So you what you don't want is you can't have like 6 different accounts going, so the streaming is, this side of the bar is watching the game that's 30 seconds out of this side of the bar. That doesn't work, right? It ruins the experience. So yeah, we weren't ready for streaming. We shouldn't do things before we're ready for it. We weren't ready for streaming. I'm not going to fault. I mean, everybody is trying to figure out where the money is going to be, where the eyeballs are going to be, what the best situation is moving forward.
But why is Peacock charging that much to have it at a bar? That's insanity.
No. It's because of the technology you have to do to get it. So it's not Peacock. It'll be for a lot of streaming services. It's not just Peacock. It's like bars to get it so this will work are going to have
need TVs that are kind of like have Wi-Fi and you put an app
whatever.
on it.
I didn't stay in. I was on my way into the stadium. I didn't stay and discuss the particulars, but this is what I was told.
All right. Tom next. Number 1, our expectations were low, but holy shit, MSU. 2, the MSU job might be radioactive in the new Big Ten. And 3, help me, Lions. You're my only hope.
I do feel good for MSU fans in the fact that despite Sunday, the Lions are going to be competitive this year and going to be good, I think.
I woke up annoyed this morning.
After the full weekend of that, you mean?
No, just the Lions.
Yeah.
The Lions lost. I just woke up at 6:30 and just stared at the ceiling for a minute. I was like, man, I guess I'm not dead inside anymore. There's a silver lining, but that loss just sucked.
To number 2, the idea that the MSU job might be radioactive in the new Big Ten, I disagree entirely. It's still one of the best 25 jobs in college football, by a long way, and it's in one of the 2 leagues that really matters. I still think it's a top half job in that league. It is. I mean, it's a good job. A lot of people want it.
Dan Grafe next. Number 1, Graham is going to spin zone the hell out of this loss. At least MSU fans have basketball. Shake my damn head. 2, if MSU messes up this next hire, it will cost MSU fans 10 years. And 3, the game on Saturday sealed Barnett not getting the job. You can't hire the interim coach of 713 yards.
Yeah, the only way, there's the only good thing for Barnett and the staff is that it happened this early. This didn't happen in November.
And to Washington.
So, if they bounce back this week, if they beat Maryland and Iowa and they're going to the bye week with that, or if they can it obviously doesn't look like that's going to happen. But I wouldn't say it was sealed because you still do have games against Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State left. Now, the decision would have to be made before that Penn State game, but when you have Michigan and Ohio State left, and you have so much of the Big Ten left, what you have is opportunities. You also have opportunities to get absolutely flattened, and to make things get really awful. So, but I wouldn't say it sealed it. It's just hard to see for sure, and makes it a lot less likely. And you're right on the cost MSU fans 10 years. 10 years seems like a lot, but this is a critically important hire.
Ricky Lombardi. Did you know Rocky Lombardi is still at Northern Illinois?
Yeah, 7th year, man.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just heard that Dan Campbell said that they were playing for the field goal at the end of regulation because they liked their chances in overtime. Same old Dan Campbell. 2, MSU secondary and O-line, same old Scotty Hazelton and same old Chris Kapilovich. These coaches, man. Harlan doesn't stand a chance.
Did Dan Campbell, the way he handled the end of regulation, what was that? It was so out of his personality. And obviously he's not calling the actual plays there. I was surprised by the way they attack every 4th down, like their hair's on fire, and then all of a sudden to have what seemed like a reasonable chance at getting in the end zone and not really go after it. It was weird.
If Goff would have thrown a pick, I would have been okay with it because at least we're trying to win the game. Of course, there would have been some complaining or whatever, but it's obviously better than the OT loss, especially now. I would agree with Dan Campbell about overtime if it were like college football.
Right.
But it's the NFL, and you don't. It's just a fucking coin flip, and the Seahawks have moved the ball all over you. So why wouldn't you go for the win?
It made no sense. It was definitely a ding on Campbell a little bit. I didn't get it.
Jack Hockelot. Maybe getting dog walked by one of the best teams in the country isn't so bad. I mean, it's not like they play Michael Penix every week from here on out, right? Right, Graham? Can you spin this to make it seem like the world isn't falling apart around me?
All right, let's spin zone.
You are about to enter the spin zone with noted newspaper columnist and radio host Graham Couch.
For the story arc of this season and the legend of Harlan Barnett and this team, this was the best thing that could have happened. Because every season needs a low point. Everybody needs a nemesis. And Washington provided this moment that just was a crater, right? Now nobody will see it coming. Now this will be part of the documentary, the movie. This was the absolute point that nobody thought they could beat Michigan and beat Ohio State and get to 11-1, which is where they're headed. How's that feel?
As soon as you said story arc, I'm like, oh shit, buckle up.
Yeah.
Ken Chu. Number 1, a team makes its biggest improvement between week 1 and week 2 of an interim coach taking over for a head coach who just got busted having unwanted phone sex with another party who didn't hang up. 2, heard in the very short line at the metal detectors, well, at least they put it outside the gate. 3, Notre Dame will lose to Ohio State because my cousins are skipping my mom's 90th birthday party to go to the game.
Oh, that's not ideal. I guess they're cousins, though. Cousins and your mom. So would you go to your aunt's 90th birthday over?
Absolutely not.
Right. That's the thing.
Never. My family, listen, I don't have a big family, thank God, but they all know during football season it's a no-go of whatever you want to do. And I know that sounds like an asshole, but they've been knowing that forever. And here's the thing about birthdays. By the way, she's 90. You can't just do it another week or a Monday. My birthday is simple. I enjoy celebrating my birthday, but guess what? I don't have to do it on the exact day because I'm 44 years old. If you want to do it 2 weeks from now on a Saturday and we go to Top Golf and hang out and have fun, sure, let's do it, right? Is it that big? I know you hate birthdays, but right? I mean, what?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And 90's up there. It's not
well,
great.
I guess it's a
So
milestone.
have you been in this situation before where you've skipped something that somebody was disappointed you in and you because you should have been there?
Well, I was in a wedding party back in the early 2000s, and of course, technology wasn't what it was today, so I was out in the parking lot for a majority of their wedding. So the bride wasn't very happy with me.
So wait a second, like the actual wedding?
Well, I stayed for the ceremony. It was at a church, and then we had to transfer over to another thingy, whatever.
Reception hall, yeah.
And so then I was on I had a flip phone, and I was calling my roommate who was at home looking at scores. I was talking to him.
And so
I missed the dollar dance that 20 years later, still hear about.
Still mad at you. Oh, so you still talk to this person?
Well, don't have it on a football Sunday. Listen, I don't want to go to things that bad. Like, I know you're great. You're getting married, your wedding. Congratulations. I'm not going.
That is a story worth telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing. If you are looking for a place to drink your sorrows away that has great beer.
By the way,
yeah,
the tux rental that I paid for, it was considered their wedding gift.
Oh, Jesus, what an ass.
Dude.
What an ass.
Complete ass.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, this is 20-year-old Rube, by the way.
If you don't want to sit around a bunch of asses, if you want to enjoy the environment, a place with good character, great food, great beer, for whether it be for brunch on Sundays, terrific Sunday brunch, a date night on the weekends, lunch with a colleague, or trivia on Tuesdays, Midtown Brewing Company is a great place for you here in downtown Lansing. Go to midtownbrewing.net to check out their menu and drink selection. I've never like I've got a decision to make on my grandma's 100th birthday coming up in end of October, and I think I'm going to miss that that exhibition basketball game, Michigan State versus Tennessee, which sucks because that's going to be a big game.
See now, there's exhibition. I don't know if I'd even say exhibition. Just say there's a game.
Well, no, but here's the
if you're missing something for an exhibition.
Well, no, I'm gonna miss the exhibition. I'm going to the 100th anniversary for 100th birthday for a couple reasons. One, it was originally supposed to be a closed scrimmage that media couldn't go to. I was sort of assured that I wasn't going to have a conflict when I okayed the date. You know, they already moved it off Saturday to Sunday so I could cover the Michigan State-Minnesota football game and fly there to Portland, Maine, where I need to get for that. Plus, it's a 100th birthday party. Yeah. Like, that feels to me, and it's my grandma, it's my dad's mom. I'd be an ignorant fuck to actually to miss it and under any.
You think she would be bummed?
Well, she won't. So she's in a place where she'll know I'm there like presently, but like a week later won't remember that I was there. So like that part of things. But my aunt will. My aunt's doing a lot of work for it. Like it's my dad's sister. Oh, yeah, whatever. It's a big deal. My wife's going
what
out.
Are you talking about? I was there. That's all you have to say.
Yeah, I'm 100% going.
Ken, 147%. Ken Chu, number one. A team makes its biggest improvement. Oh, shit, I read those. David Jackson, number one. At 6:49 left in the second quarter, I wrote, "So ends Barnett's bid to become permanent head coach. We can start the national search for a new coach on Sunday morning." 2, Noah Kim should not play until the third quarter.
Well, he's definitely struggled earlier. I do think if you're Alan Haller, you begin to make calls. You know, you are supportive publicly of Harlan Barnett and the staff, but nothing should catch you off guard. You should begin your work on this, your background work on a lot of different guys who interest you. The problem is they're all in different sorts of their season too. Now, there might be guys who are intriguing as prospects, and the way this season goes, they're not. It's just so early. It just doesn't happen this early very often, which is to Michigan State's advantage in a lot of ways. But also you can overdo it. But you got to prep with a lot of different guys. There should be like a list of like 25 guys that you want to sort of begin to do a little bit of vetting and watching and make some calls about privately, and so you can really make a good informed decision if things don't go well for Barnett, and they certainly did on Saturday.
Ethan Carmelo next. Number one. On the bright side, this loss still counts as 1, not 7. Like we've said all offseason, Maryland is the game of the year. Lose by 30? Oh, boy. Win? We might be okay. 2, Izzo wins 2 national titles in the next 5 years. And 3, Duke's Mike Elko is your next MSU football coach.
That is Couch in the Rube Twitter account follower, Duke's Mike Elko, by the way.
Hire him. That's all I need to hear.
He liked our hot take show and followed us. So we are all on the
didn't
Mike
bump
Elko
into
train.
it or something?
Yeah, he must have thought it was something else. Yeah, there's just no way he really wanted to. But he has some ties to this area. His guy was coached in the Mid-American Conference the years that I was covering that league. So maybe even knows who I am. There's that jackass from Kalamazoo who was around back in the day.
Him too much credit now. Chris from New York next. Number one, there is no reason to watch MSU the rest of this year. The staff will be blown up and many players will leave. So this team isn't building toward the future. 2, this is the lowest point in Spartan football history. And 3, such humiliation is a good long term. It will motivate MSU to overpay for a young and innovative coach to avoid similar disasters.
I don't know if this is the lowest point in Spartan football history. There have been some toughies.
Let's go over the top 5 catastrophic events in MSU football.
There have been
Coming back after this.
There have been some moments. This is up there for sure. I don't know if humiliation is ever great long term unless it's totally needed. I don't know that this was needed humiliation. I'll say that.
Nate Rhodes, number 1, Scotty Hazelton needs to go. 375 yards and 4 TDs in one half is never acceptable. 2, Peyton Thorne and Keon Coleman found out about this scandal in the spring, and it's the reason why they transferred.
I would. That is not the case. I'm going to promise you that.
There might be an investigation if that were the case.
That's not the case. Look, Hazelton is the thing is, everybody says these coaches need to go. If they don't turn this around, they know this. They're dead men walking. Like before, when Mel Tucker was the head coach, being upset with a coordinator or assistant position coach when they were on 1- and 2-year deals and he was on a 10-year deal, like if that made sense. Like the idea that somebody has to go. They're all going to go unless they turn this around. Like they're all trying to figure this out. Like you don't even need to say it. Like it's either going to happen and things are going to go well for them, or they're not going to be the head. They're not going to be on the staff. So you don't even need to say it anymore.
Matt C. Next, number 1, MSU fans are blessed to get out of this Mel Tucker contract. The result would have been the same even if he was chopping in the sidelines. 2, Harlan Barnett. You seriously want a job next year at a Power 5 school? Stop chopping. And 3, it's clear half these players have quit and are just wanting to hit the portal. Don't blame them. It's going to be a long year.
I don't think they've quit yet. And number 1, and I don't want to – quit is a tough word too. And I think there are varying degrees of – and I don't think any of it's happened yet. I think it was last week was a shock to the system. Were they prepared as well as they should have been? Who knows? Were they dialed into the level they should have been? Who knows? The test for this sort of thing will come in the coming weeks if things continue to go wrong. But there are varying degrees of like, if a college football player is like watching extra film, totally dialed in, that is one thing. If they're going through the motions, doesn't mean they've quit on Saturdays and other things. But if if your week of preparation isn't what it would have been, or you just kind of know what's coming and it's weighing heavily on your mind, it can show up.
AI God next. MSU is beating Maryland and starting the season 3-1, which is as expected or better than expected. This game means nothing.
Again, this goes to the spin zone segment I did. If they beat Maryland and they get to 3-1, and people are feeling a lot better about things next week, it'll be a very different show. And you root for people who have gone through something like this to have a little success. Now, a little success doesn't mean, and I don't think people should fear like, oh, they won a couple games here and there, and they want Michigan State to go outside for a new coach. They shouldn't fear that that's, I mean, I understand there's all sorts of ways of thinking that way. Like if there's too much success, then Harlan Barnett stays, and people are worried about that and may be worried about that. You want what's best for the program, and if they somehow turn this thing, then that's...
Can I just say something about the Barnett thing, though, watching him on the sidelines? Like, really, not his fault, but it just didn't look like he fit. Like, with the headset and being in charge. Take it how you want, but that's just what I was feeling when I was watching the game. So
that's fair. Look, this is his opportunity,
sure,
and it's not a great opportunity. It's a better opportunity than some people ever get, but he's gonna have to figure it out. And
first Florida State, and then coming back to MSU and being
he's gonna have to figure it out, or it's just not. It's not gonna. He's not. Not only will he not get this job, but he won't get another opportunity.
Alan Bolter next. Number 1. Never expected MSU to win Saturday, but to not show up is just embarrassing and disappointing. 2, it's clear this MSU coaching staff is not getting it done on both sides of the ball. Finish out the year and move on. Not exactly a great showing out of Barnett's secondary either. 3, Dan Campbell cannot keep going for every 4th down. I think some of his coaching decisions cost the Lions the game yesterday. 4th and without Montgomery around the midfield, and not kicking the field goal in the first half. Sometimes it's okay to kick.
Yeah, I mean, Dan Campbell is, look, everybody likes Campbell because of the culture he sets, the aggressive nature. I think he is a really good fit with Ben Johnson. I think that's a nice tandem, all that stuff. But, I don't think he coached a great game yesterday. And I just think the end of the game especially was just bizarre, and it makes you wonder a little bit. And I haven't read everything that was. Did he admit that he would do it differently again if they
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I don't know.
That he was playing for OT.
Yeah.
Kurt Wisniewski next. Number 1, screw beer sales. Still no melting donut moments at Spartan Stadium. Those would have helped yesterday. 2, Barnett looked like he was lost on the sideline. Positive. I saw no chopping or damn sweating. 3, it's time to bring in Caton Hauser for the rest of the season.
Yeah, there's a little bit of chopping, and Barnett was in the post game had a little bit of chopping, which you want to. I mean, again, Barnett's in a weird spot, right? Because these players believed in Mel Tucker. They came to the school in part because of him. This was a staff as a whole, and now he's gone. So you can't just shuck everything he did aside.
You can though. The keep chopping thing, you can.
Well, yes,
I would just retire.
I would go with it less. The other thing I would retire quickly if I were him was another statement that's very D'Antonio-esque that I had not heard in a little while. All our goals are still in front of us. It is the statement. I first remember it with Denikos Allen in 2012. The goals were not still in front of them, and he just kept repeating it week after week. It was like the D'Antonio statement of the world. And as he's getting advised how to be a head coach, the one thing I would step in and tell Mark D'Antonio is, hey, the messaging on all the goals are still in front of us, nobody wants to hear that. That makes you an unsympathetic character. And Harlan Barnett is a sympathetic character in a lot of ways right now. And so don't say all our goals are still in front of us. It's not. Nobody wants to hear that.
Plus size softball dad next. Number 1, thank goodness D'Antonio returned. I hate to see the score if he wasn't there. 2, it can't hurt to fire Hazelton after that debacle. No need for staff continuity.
Continuity.
Oh, fuck it. 3, I have no faith in MSU to get the most important decision in the program's history correct.
I mean, I understand that Michigan State has been maybe 50-50 on these decisions lately. If you go back in their last few football coaches, Saban, great hire. Mark D'Antonio, great hire. John L. Smith, not a great hire. Keeping Bobby Williams, not a great hire. Mel Tucker didn't turn out well. Who knows where that was headed? But, it's sort of a 50-50 thing. I understand the lack of faith, and we'll see where they go. There's obviously a ton of pressure. This is going to make or break Alan Haller's legacy and career. This is going to make or break a lot of things around MSU, and it's a needle to thread, a thread to needle. Fuck, I fucking always get fuck that. I hate that phrase.
Call me Al next. Number 1, the talent gap is inexcusable, and the talent we have is not well coached. That's on Tucker. 2, Alan Haller should be on the hot seat. And 3, the university is currently without a leader, and it's a huge issue. Bonus. Was in Boulder last week, not for the game. Top 10 college town.
I've been to Boulder once. It checks out. It's a cool place. The look, Alan Haller is. I mean, a couple things. One, say Alan Haller should be on the hot seat. I would say for what? In other words, for the Mel Tucker hire. He can't. The next hire has to be right, but they don't have a school president right now. You got a board of trustees that nobody wants. I mean, I think we should just stop electing them and make them appointed or whatever. We just can't. That's not worked. Your athletic director, who I think has made some good choices with non-revenue guys, and there were good reasons for the Mel Tucker hire at the time. I don't think that Alan Haller is the problem right now. Now, if through all this sort of stuff with Mel Tucker, something changes on that front, fine. But right now, I think Haller definitely deserves to make one more coaching move. Now, this will be it. He's got to get it right, and you don't get redos on this stuff very much.
Chris Eastlick next. Number 1, hopefully there is a full court press to keep as many talented guys in the program as possible. If not, there are dark, dark days ahead. 2, I feel bad for Harlan Barnett. There is no winning for him. Getting to a bowl game at 6-6, he likely won't be a serious candidate. Games like yesterday, he'll take the blame for a situation he didn't cause. And 3, as much as any dark days would stink, this program feels like it needs a hard reset.
So if they get to 6-6, Harlan Barnett will be a head coach somewhere. It will not be at Michigan State. You're correct. Because look at Luke Fickell, for example. Luke Fickell was the interim head coach after Tressel got fired on that Ohio State team that went 6-6. Was not enough, and I think he wound up staying on that staff briefly. But his career eventually took. People liked him enough. He was impressive enough that he wound up getting a job. A Mid-American Conference job, something like that would one AA job. There will be something for Harlan Barnett, I think, if he gets this team to 6-6. If they 6-6 is going to be like I would if I had to bet right now, I would bet 4-8. If I had to pick a number. And so 6-6 is, I think, above expectations at this point, given everything that's happening. Not enough for him to stay, but would be, I think, enough for him to be an intriguing possibility somewhere else.
Matt Boone, next, number one. Gambling will get me through the college football season, which might be good. Only time will tell. 2, same old team as last year. Terrible play calling, average QB at best, and a defense that for some reasons give miles of separation. And 3, I wish to lose games by 10 or less points.
Changing
not too much to ask.
Yeah, it seems reasonable. And again, this week. So do you see the Vegas line on this week is 6.5 from Maryland, or 6.5? I've seen it a couple different places.
Yeah.
You can check it out on the Firekeeper's Eye Casino and Sportsbook app. I would not like the problem right now is this. If you're going to bet that, I would tell you to bet Maryland. You're also asking me to tell you to trust Maryland football on the road, and
it's a fade.
It's a total fade because you're not going to bet on Michigan State right now. You got to be insane to do it unless you really have inside intel one way or another.
JD, next, number one, clean the house, top to bottom. Let any and all players leave if they want and hire someone with no affiliation to this university. 2, 6-6 is the new ceiling for this MSU team. And 3, the coaching candidates the Detroit media is pushing for MSU is the perfect example of the blue wall. They treat MSU like a glorified MAC school, pushing for coaches like Candle and Creighton. Bonus, Lions take. This felt like a Tom Izzo fat and sassy loss. NFC Championship game incoming.
There was a little bit of I don't want to say fat and sassy, because I don't believe in the NFL people are complacent all that often. But
that's outside hype, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean,
what are you
supposed to do? Like, no, we're going to finish last in division.
Well, but I mean, fat and sassy, the whole idea is if you're a little complacent or whatever. I don't think first home game with that crowd, that's what happened.
I'm not fat. I'm fat. I'm not sassy, believe me, after those games. Joe Naughty next. John. Number one, Tucker screwed MSU more than the end of D'Antonio's career, and he's not done yet. 2, running a draw on 3rd and 17 before halftime shows you can't win, knowing you can't win and aren't trying to win. 3, MSU has about 90 days until signing day to decide whether it plans to financially compete in the new Big Ten or live indefinitely as self-imposed underdog.
They want to compete. The fans want them to compete. They're going to go after and try and get somebody who can give them a shot here. I mean, I think that statement has been made with the decisions they made around Mel Tucker. I don't think those things will change. They've got some NIL collective stuff in place. The next coach is taking over a better situation in a lot of ways than Mel Tucker took over, in terms of an administration and that understands certain things that need to be in place for that coach, resources that need to be in place, facilities, the way you pick up recruits, the private planes, the NIL stuff they've had a little bit of a dry run with. Like, there's a lot that they're going to have to clean up, but especially if they can get a couple of the last 2 recruiting classes, some of those guys to stick around, the next coach takes over a better situation than Mel Tucker did.
Joshua, next, number one, is there any hope for the rest of the season? With coaches likely gone and players transferring, it's going to be tough to watch the rest of the season not knowing who will be back next year. 2, lots of talk on Johnny Spirit on Twitter yesterday. Why does he get so much hate? Possible topic for Spartan Speak. 3, the Lions are 2-0 with Jalen Carter. Yeah. Probably.
Yeah, you're probably right on that. That's painful.
Yeah,
Spartan Speak, that might be with Solari to bring him up and talk about Johnny Spirit, because I do love that they wouldn't let Johnny Spirit cross the bridge with the team. Like, he used to do that. He used to lead the team on his bicycle, and he was upset by it. But is there any more character? I mean, there probably is. I don't know about other schools elsewhere. But for a guy who is all pro-Michigan State to be that disliked, it is pretty remarkable.
And it is like, don't you have any self-awareness that people don't really like you?
Yeah.
And just walking around and paint it up. Spartan 18770 next. Number one, fans thought that bringing back D'Antonio, Barnett, and Thunderstruck would return us to the glory days. What Saturday did was show us the harsh reality of present-day college football. 2, Graham, Saturday, you said MSU fans are lucky to have a great basketball program to fall back on. Did you drop this take again?
I did.
I contend that it's actually a curse. We will never care enough about football and demand better as long as we have Izzo and his program. We are a basketball school. And 3, this week was probably not the best time to introduce the Spartan Dog NIL. What idiot thought to roll this out after all of this happened? I wouldn't give you $1 a week, let alone $5,000. My university is such a fucking joke right now.
Yeah, the SD4L NIL thing. Look, you roll it out when you roll it out. I don't think it's a little bit of a soft rollout. Look, it is what it is. That will be there for people in place whenever the new coach is hired, when everything good happens. I think the hope was that people would rally around the Harlan Barnett and the staff and the players, and that they would have a positive result, and it would feel like a time to give. Maybe that was it. It did not work out as they had hoped, for sure. And the basketball program thing, you can say it's a curse, but I don't think anybody in the world would say what they've got with Michigan State basketball is a curse.
But I understand what he's saying,
yes,
though, right? Because if you had only the football to look forward to.
Yes.
Graham Nelson, number 1, is a football team that consistently wins 8 or 9 games and has a magical run at a final for every 5 years or so, mixed with what we have in hoops, too much to ask for. 2 players were lost yesterday, and I get it. Everyone has a clean slate in my book. And 3, just kidding, fire Ross Ells and give D'Antonio his responsibilities today.
It's not too much to ask. And I think that's what Michigan State football, and understand what it should be, to win 8 or 9 games and have a big run every 4 or 5 years would be, a lot of people would be pretty happy with that. There would be some frustration sometimes that there might still be some teams above them. I think it's important to get there too quickly, because I don't know what MSU basketball will be post-Izzo. It might be okay. It's going to be an attractive job. It'll be interesting to see who takes it. But MSU basketball is still a one-coach program, and so you want your football program to feel good about too, because you're not going to be able to count on this.
Don't coach my team.
Andy Schofield next, number 1. This was happening whether Tucker was there or not. Looks like this program was trending the wrong way. 2, Hauser's level of effort was appreciated on that 99-yard drive, even if it was against all backups. And 3, not insulting Jason today, just too sad. Well, Schofield, there's about 40 more questions, so it's going to get worse, so get a helmet.
Yeah. When Jason starts to get frustrated and hot and short with
Dude, it's so hot.
The back half of the show will be incredibly interesting. Yeah, look, Caton Hauser did have a good drive there. It was against the backups. It was not in a moment of the game that mattered. But when the game mattered, Michigan State could do nothing. So I do think it is probably time to give him a look at a point in the game that does actually matter. Let us take a really quick break now. We come back, we'll get into more of your hot takes. Couch in the Rube, presented by our friends at Muskox Flannels.
Where else can you cheer on your team? Enjoy a mouth-watering burger or savory sushi. Sip on handcrafted cocktails or one of 46 beers on tap. Take your game day or date night to Cask & Company Kitchen Bar or Front 43 Neighborhood Pub near Frandor. 2 amazing places with 1 awesome blended modern American Asian menu. Catch the game on one of 30 60-inch TVs or stop in for the all-you-can-eat lunch buffet. Enjoy happy hour or elevate your night out at Cask & Company or Front 43 on East Saginaw in Lansing. Ever wonder how comfortable you can be and how good you can look? Put on a Muskox flannel and find out. Muskox has new arrivals for this fall, including the Caper Green Grand Flannel, which even makes couch look good. Muskox is a Detroit-based flannel company that creates soft and durable flannels made to last a lifetime. They become a great partner with Couch in the Rube, not just because they make us look good and feel good, but because they're good people too, and a socially conscious company. For every $100 purchase, $10 is donated to the Alaska Wildlife Conservation. Muskox flannels are designed with 100% cotton that is ethically sourced and double brushed for softness. Feel the quality and comfort of a Muskox flannel by ordering at GoMuskox.com, where Couch in the Rube listeners can enjoy $15 off their flannel purchase with the promo code HOFF. Firekeepers Online Casino and Sportsbook is the site to play. Get your Vegas on right now from your phone, tablet, or laptop. All the hottest slots and tables, plus sports betting featuring in-game wagering. Download the app at firekeeperscasino.com. Go with the name you know. Firekeepers. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older and located in Michigan. Gambling problem? Call the Michigan Problem Gambling Helpline at 1-800-270-7117. Wherever you are on your cannabis journey, let Sky Mint Premium Cannabis be your guide, your friend, and your place. Whether you're curious about cannabis or a seasoned connoisseur, Sky Mint's knowledgeable staff will help you with a vast selection of products to choose from to fit your needs. Sky Mint believes access to the best cannabis helps people do good and feel good, so they grow it right here in Michigan, giving you high-quality, locally grown cannabis at highly accessible prices. Visit skymint.com for special offers and location information throughout Michigan, and use the promo code CouchAndRube20 for 20% off your first visit. Sky Mint Cannabis. You'll love this place.
Find Couch and the Rube podcasts on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Google Podcasts, CastBox, and the Rube's favorite podcast addict.
Couch in the Rube, presented by our friends at Muskox Quality Flannels. Visit gomuskox.com, and you can use the Couch in the Rube promo code HOFF, H-O-F-F, for $15 off a flannel purchase. You can look as good as Jason and I do. We cannot wear the flannels in studio today. It is so damn hot in here, although I was wearing mine the other day, and even my wife complimented me, and it takes a lot for her to compliment me on my appearance. So there was that. But we cannot wear them in here today. Like, I have the back sweat going on right now with me, Jason, is just
That's hot.
It's hot.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
No, I mean, that's hot, yeah.
Yeah,
Sweat.
right, yeah.
Michael Warheit next. I was looking forward to seeing improvement with this MSU team this year, and this was like a stink bomb went off in the locker room. Got tickets to the Maryland game. Do I go? As a lifelong alumni, this is one of the lower points I've experienced with this team. Basketball, anyone?
But again, that is the thing MSU has that others don't, where they go, okay, great, basketball season, they're all in, but you don't ache for football year round, and that does I think impact MSU football in certain ways and will in the NIL era. That's all there is. But yeah, no, it's do you go? Yeah, I mean, I would go and support these guys. I think, it'll be an interesting crowd. It's homecoming. I would go though, and I would, if it gets really bleak, there are only a couple more home games after this anyway. But I'd want to support these guys and give them another go.
Just go stand in the beer line, I guess.
Yeah, and leave at halftime if you don't love it, or leave. Here's my other thing I would say: leave after they come out of the tunnel. If you leave before that, it's sort of it can impact a player, and they've talked about this before. If you run out to an empty stadium in the second half, it's like, oh, it's deflating. Run out to a decent crowd, then check out.
It's kind of like doing a live remote and 4 people showing up.
Been there.
Kevin from Rochester Hills, number 1, the refs were the reason MSU lost. 2, Peacock announcers suck ass. Beth Mowens or Shep would have been better. 3, the Lions still suck. Worst defense in the NFL.
I don't know if it's that, but it's look, they didn't turn it all the way around, right? The pass rush was disappointing, to say the least, for sure.
Where are we on?
Ryan Allen.
Ryan Allen, number 1, the Lions should be 0-2. Take away 19 drops, and we lose easily to Kansas City. 2, Hutchinson might be overrated. Don't care about pressure, and don't tell me about double teams because they did very little. And 3, MSU is a basketball school. Never forget that, Couch.
If football won big, it would not be that. And Tom Izzo and I agree, for sure.
Nick from Rochester Hills, number 1, is it time to rethink the Noah Kim? What will it take to replace him? 2, it looked like the wheels are coming off the bus. Do you think the first game with Coach Barnett gets a pass? And 3, finish the season with bowl appearances, and the Washington loss will be a turning point.
Low point, I don't know, turning point. I mean, it was the first. They were 2-0 going into that. It'll be this just crater-sized hole when it was like, holy smokes. And maybe it was just a long week that bubbled up against a great team. Do I think Barnett gets a pass? I don't know. A pass is too much, but I will say they deserve a little bit of maybe there's a little bit of a mulligan there, but that doesn't last forever. And this is a big week because they've had last time a week ago on Sunday they still had a head coach who was then let go that day, and it's a weird week preparing for a huge game. This week, as you go into Big Ten play, you've had a little more of a normal run. And so if it looks like that again, then it's a problem.
C.E. Steniga. Number one, the scariest thing was the physical difference. In the stadium, the receivers and defensive backs had a few inches in height and a step or more on our guys. Lines were worse. Maybe Hall, Mangham, and Tatum, Young, and a couple others flashed that ceiling at times. Some guys on the defensive line look slower. 2, won't panic completely until next week. That's the first time many of our young guys have gone up against that kind of size and speed. There may not be any fixing the offensive line, though. I suspect Blackstock and Boyd are both starting soon. How much that helps remains to be seen. And 3, that's a good, as good of a college offense, pass offense, as I've seen. Penix doesn't make bad throws and has added a vertical game. The receivers are huge, strong, physical, and run great routes. Even when we had decent coverage, ball placement was such that their guys could just go up and take it away.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, that's the thing. Washington was the perfect storm of a turbulent week, a team that may not be ready for that anyway, and then a matchup that just, I mean, a quarterback and receivers. It may be the best quarterback receiving offense tandem in the country. It was incredible. Yeah, I agree. I think the panic is look, we all know what it could look like, so I don't even know if it'll be panic. But understanding what's coming will happen if this week looks like last week.
Jeff Peterson next. Number one, sadly, this is MSU football forever. The 500 ball club that will occasionally throw in a 10 or 11 game winning season mixed in with 3-9 or 4-8. 2, take your lumps at the end of the year and get rid of everybody and start over after the fire sale, even if it means losing recruits. And 3, I'm telling you, look out for the Tigers next year.
Tigers hot take. We'll take it. Yeah, they went to 70 wins the other night. They went over the over-under for the season already. Have a chance to get to like 75 by the end of the year or more. I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons, given what SCU ball has looked like, given what the core of their young guys, to think that in this particular division, which I'm grateful they're in, that they'll be in the hunt next year. And I hope they're, I don't know, next year we'll start sort of on the Tigers, hopeful about them, won't we? Don't you think?
Duh.
Yeah.
It's going to happen every year.
Absolutely.
In Kim we trust. Number one, D'Antonio is a legend for what he accomplished at MSU. He wasn't the hot name when he was hired. He was the right hire, though. 2, no big name coach is coming to MSU. Haller has to find the best up-and-comer or solid coach out there. No coordinators. 3, Lions refs are ass.
So, if you want to have, if you're looking for reasons to have faith in Alan Haller on this decision and the brass here, the D'Antonio was one of them. Haller was part of that. He wasn't part of the university yet, but he was part of the selection committee or whatever it was that interviewed Mark D'Antonio. And he'll talk about that interview to this day and how much he knew. And he said to me, that's our coach. Like, he knew the second he sat down and the things he taught, it was just so obvious, and it really worked out. And so you hope he has that moment and it pays dividends again. And look, I think they liked Mel Tucker a lot, but I don't know that it was ever quite to the extent that he knew it with Mark D'Antonio.
Tribalist Wanderer. Let's talk the Spartan secondary. When is there going to be a change in approach? It's like a broken record.
Maybe after this season. I can't tell you. You're right. And maybe you're facing a team where you have to give them cushion because it's the only way to deal with it. But when you give up 35 points in the first half, it ain't working.
DMB next. Number one, there is nothing to lose by giving Caton Hauser meaningful snaps. Who cares about Noah Kim's feelings? 2, Johnson, Hazelton, Kapilovic are the problem. 4 years in East Lansing, the product can't look like that. And 3, 30 to 60 minutes wait to get beer. Figure it out fast if you want fans in the stands.
Yeah, I've heard the beer wasn't easy to get. And again, this is part of the play a little bit. If you're thinking people might get too drunk, it's hard to get beer. It's hard to get too many of them. But you don't want the experience to also be shit too. You don't want to miss so much of the game that there's no point in ever getting a beer. They do need to figure that out.
So you want to cut me off, so you just make me wait 45 minutes in a line.
Right. We'll keep you out of the stadium. You just stand in line for 45.
I'm going to sneak booze in then. Kiss my ass.
I know. I do think that cut them some slack on this level. This is a late run-up. This was not – they didn't get a full year. This was something that over the summer became legal to do. They didn't think they were going to be able to do yet. They started it in the third home game of the season. I think they'll learn a lot from this. I would expect it to be smoother in basketball, and I would expect them to have a little bit of a different setup by next year in football.
But don't you think that you yourself and two other people, you guys could talk it out and figure out how to sell beer at a stadium in like a week, right? I mean, like, how long should it take to figure it out?
Well, how many vendors you want to sell it and where and all that
Well,
stuff?
sure, that, but getting the beer, I'm saying. Like, all the vendors, yeah. But I'm talking about just going in a line and getting the beer. I don't want to sit there for a half hour.
Yeah.
David, number 1, Lions secondary still sucks. 2, MSU is bad, but still play a lot of really average Big Ten teams, so I'm not ready to give up on 7-5 yet.
Whew. They get to 7-5, they're beating Maryland and or Iowa for sure. And, if they do win a game in the next 2 weeks, it says they haven't quit. It says they've steadied things. I mean, that changes all the possibilities in terms of getting to that, getting to a bowl game or something like that if they're able to rally and do that. I think we're going to be able to reassess that. Look, that bye week's going to be such a weird week. That's the week of the hearing for Mel Tucker, the Title IX hearing, and we'll know a lot about the state of the program.
Eric Larson, number 1, only 49 days to first tip. 2, MSU isn't a basketball or football school. It's both equally. And 3, thank God, only 49 days to the tip.
Yeah, it's both equally, and it is. I still think it's leans football, but it's the rarest of places that has that, and So,
all right, Richard Kane, number 1.
Yeah, all right. Sorry,
there's too many questions here. Richard Kane, number 1. There is the old cliche about not letting a team beat you twice. This Washington team is going to beat the Spartans several times, I'm afraid. Odds of coming back from this look bleak. 2, MSU will be very, very fortunate to win 6 games. And 3, State would have been better off forfeiting this game.
The Washington game, beating them twice is a distinct possibility because that can be the sort of game that just leaves you realizing it's not going to happen for your team or you're not as good as you thought, and it can really deflate your confidence. That is a challenge. That's a challenge for the staff, and it's a challenge for this team.
Jarrett, number 1. I can't root for this MSU team if they keep doing the chopping. Keep chopping? 2, how did Jay Johnson think running a quick tempo offense would be good against Washington? And 3, hire someone that makes MSU's offense watchable. Make it so it doesn't hurt when MSU has the ball.
I do think MSU might be, and I know the last 2 coaches have been defensive guys, and John L. Smith didn't go well. And most of their best coaches of all time have been defensive guys. Wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to go after a guy who really made things hum on offense, though.
Lucas, number 1, worst MSU loss I've seen in person since 2006 against Ohio State. 2, we're going 4-8 or worse. 3, I'm contemplating not coming back this year. Already sold the Maryland ticket. The other 2 are weighing on my mind. And bonus, this is going to be the most important hire in MSU football history.
So when he says the other 2, that includes the Michigan game, and that is going to be a game that is going to be fascinating to watch because Michigan will have no mercy on this program. But they also aren't this prolific passing game that's probably going to run away from you like that. But Michigan State's got to keep it together to make that thing competitive because what you really don't want is one of those 49-3 type deals with Michigan.
Ryan Schultz, number 1. Graham loves to say, well, this was never going to be the year we judged Tucker. Yes, it was. The team can't look like that against an incoming Pac-12 opponent, even if you call this year 3. The coaches have any goddamn clue what they're doing. Thank God Tuck's done. 2, Naylor, Reed, and Henderson added together deserved almost as much credit for 2021 as Kenneth Walker. They were clearly world-class college football players capable of winning in spite of these coaches rather than because of them.
I think there's something to that. I mean, Naylor and Reed are NFL guys, right? And Reed looks like, he's going to be a pretty good player in the NFL. Xavier Henderson was a terrific college player. And, there's a lot more than – it wasn't just the Kenneth Walker story, but he's what separated them. He's what really separated them and made them different. But that offense at its peak with Naylor, Reed, and Kenneth Walker was legit good. And the offensive line was better than it looked recently.
Andrew Gauthier next. Number 1, MSU hasn't been this bad since the John L. era. Looks like Tuck was a flash in the pan in 21. 2, unless MSU can pick a premium coaching replacement, this is going to be a long, painful rebuild like the Tigers. And 3, that fake kneel down was a low blow.
That fake kneel down was something. First of all, I can't believe Washington did it because, Jason, like if you got to play like a fake kneel down, which is clever. I mean, I give them credit.
Yeah.
Why do you waste it when you're up like 35?
See if it works.
Yeah.
Run it in a game experience. Why wouldn't you? I wasn't listen, you're getting your ass beat. Why not try a play that can help you down the line?
Right, but if you know it works, why not catch somebody more off guard? I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'm reading too much into it. Yeah.
No, it was weird. Don't get me wrong, but Nathan McVeigh, number one, keeping Johnny Spirit from the Spartan Walk is a great idea. His act is about as fresh as a Foghat concert. 2, maybe Michael Penix Jr. and Washington are just that good or not. 3, Mel Tucker has set MSU's program back 5 to 7 years in the new college football format. He Alavila'd them?
Ooh.
Am I right?
Yeah. No, and he's right in the sense that in the format, you just got to be a 9-10 win team and you got a shot. So, you know what would be fun to do is to have Solari on and just pick 7 or 8 topics that would set him off. And have him rant like Johnny Spirit and whatever else.
Why can't he just come on and talk about Johnny Spirit for a minute?
I mean,
everybody hates him. Why not?
Yeah.
People would like to listen to that.
I think so.
Yeah. John Crager, number 1, ass. 2, pay Kenneth Walker the remainder of Tucker's contract because if not for him, Tucker doesn't get that contract. 3, I'm sick of the short-term memories of fans when it comes to D'Antonio. He's the one that put us in this spot in the first place by leaving in February of 20.
There's no doubt that to some degree he deserves some culpability. For how long, I don't know, but that culpability was certainly not over because there are lots of players on this roster that were his. There are lots of players who transferred out who are still playing college football that were his. The cupboard wasn't bare. There were some decent players, but it was thin, and they had lost some steam. And the offensive line, which that's a unit that takes time to build, had not been good in a long time under them. So that regime. I'm not. Yeah, he deserves some culpability for sure. He is a legend, however, and his legend will grow. And what he did for 6 seasons is unlike anybody's ever done at Michigan State.
Jonathan B. next, number 1. A popular question asks which you'd prefer, a blowout loss or a heartbreaking one. Well, we got to experience both this weekend, and it's not a great feeling. And 2, perhaps the worst thing to come out of the MSU game is a potential quarterback controversy.
I don't think it's a bad thing. If you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a quarterback, you find one. This season can deal with a quarterback controversy. There's enough going on. Like, this is big boy football. These guys are going to have to prove it. Noah Kim's going to have to prove it. He's going to get more chances. He's going to get another chance for sure. But he's got to be better than that. I mean, and I understand that he was under siege and there wasn't a lot going for them. But, you got to be a guy who can make things happen for your team, and he was not on Saturday.
B. Parker, number 1, Kim is not him. 2, beer sales were a joke. I had a stand right behind my section, but never, ever bought one beer because the line was 20 to 30 minutes long the entire game. 3, I'm disgusted. It looks like we're about to go through the 90s again on the football field.
So here's the question with beer, Jason, though. I wonder if the way the game played out made the beer situation even worse than it would have been. If people were like, fuck it, I don't want to watch this, I'm just going to go drink.
Touche. Yeah, that could be it.
So, the line is actually just people who would have normally in a competitive game been sitting in their seats, and half the line is people going, I'm just going to go get a beer.
I will apologize to the people that are in charge of selling the beer and not figuring it out because, that's a great point. People are like, fuck. I think I just would have walked out, though.
Yeah, I
went back to the tailgate.
The students certainly did, yeah.
Nestle's Quick Hotel next. Number 1, the vibe was bad Saturday from the start. Campus was almost quiet before the game, and the crowd was stale. 2, alcohol works wonders. If you get it. 3, to make it clear, nobody who is a paid MSU football coach this morning should still be on the payroll September of 2024.
We'll see about it. I mean, there are good coaches on that staff. And, I've talked about...
Name one.
I've talked about Courtney Hawkins before as somebody that I would be intrigued by. Like, if say this whole thing doesn't work and they do go outside and they bring in another coach, and Courtney Hawkins is a guy who, was in Flint before. He's not a guy who's jumped around a lot of different college jobs. And I would be very inclined to keep him on any staff moving forward.
Police chief of Flavortown next. Number 1, they need to spread out where you can buy beer. The concourses were clogged up. 2, I don't think MSU football will ever be a top-tier product again. D'Antonio was a blessing, and we may get one season like 21 again, but It's just a mediocre product. 3, thank God for Izzo.
Yeah, I think MSU football. I mean, we saw under D'Antonio what MSU football can do, and with the right coach and the right approach for an era for a period of time. And the problem is for the next coach and every coach is that is a standard that is now there, and it's recent enough standard that that's what people want.
Sean, number 1, was this display on Saturday an indictment against Tucker for keeping Hazelton and Johnson for 3 seasons? 2, it's amazing how many outlets and media quickly turned their tune in Tucker, and now it's all he was. Fuck that. 3, will Tucker apologists, there's more than a few, regard him as poorly as they do at the end of the D'Antonio era?
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately Tucker will not be remembered anywhere near as fondly as Mark D'Antonio, and that's by just about everybody. But the idea that people have changed their tune on Tucker, look, there's first of all, there's new information. The man had incredibly poor judgment on something and did something that screwed over his players and his coaching staff, and then right after that, the first game you see, we see that. And look, Tucker deserves the heat, so to speak.
Jay Riemann Schneider, number 1, you're right. Washington was 4-8 just 2 seasons ago, but MSU was 5-7 just last year. Sorry, Graham. Yes, Washington is that much superior to MSU. 2, I searched online for you and Chris's video after the game and saw your tweet saying Michigan, Bama, and others don't care about basketball, but MSU does. That sounds like a Spartan slappy that's salty after a loss. Graham, you're better than that. You've said that take like 50,000 times. It's 3, you and your wife eating 6 donuts by splitting them like you do. You do realize it's still eating like 3 apiece, which is a lot of fat, carbs, and calories.
Hey, man.
Unless you're throwing the rest away, which is imprudent. Don't waste food. Boy, what a chipper guy this Jay Riemann Schneider guy is. Bonus take. Jesus. J.J. McCarthy just played himself out of any Heisman consideration.
Yeah, he didn't have a great night, and they didn't come close to covering the spread against Bowling Green. Okay, quick thing on the tweet about me saying that Michigan State fans first of all, I'm speaking mostly to Michigan State fans, who are most of the people who follow me, saying that you at least have this, that Michigan State fans at least have basketball that they care about, that stirs the soul. Whereas Michigan, Alabama, South Carolina, Ohio State, they don't. It's not a question. It is me playing the hits, but I'm just reminding people that. That's all it is. It's not a Spartan slappy salty, because I don't give a shit. I really don't. Like my life doesn't change one way or another. I had a conversation with Mel Tucker at one point where he wasn't real thrilled with me, and I made it clear that I'm not somebody who's going anywhere. Like, this is my hometown. I didn't say this directly, but I'm going to be here after him, and it turns out I am. So whatever.
See, you should have said it then.
Donuts, however, we don't eat the full donut. So what we do is we have 6 groovy donuts, and we cut them up, and we have like 1 or 2 bites of each. It is a fair number of calories. It's not something we do every day, but groovy donuts are so damn good that if you're going to choose to have something that's not the healthiest thing for you, you might as well make it a groovy donut.
Ben Jen, number 1, Harlan Barnett must not get this job. Exhibit A, MSU slow play call and timeout after the first drive. Fumble, I rest my case. Caw. 2, Noah Kim wouldn't even be on Auburn's roster, let alone start. Caw. 3, basketball's back.
Yeah, you know what? It's really nice to sit in comfort at Breslin Center. A Muskox flannel, by the way. Basketball's back. Not just football season. Muskox flannels. Yeah, look, Kim had an awful day. I, again, like the rest of the roster, I'm willing to sort of have a mulligan there and say, okay, let's see now. He hadn't, as a starter, keep in mind, he had never faced a Power 5 opponent as a starter. Every time he's been in the game, it's been against backups. He's never faced anything like that in his life, and it didn't go well. The line didn't help him. Nothing was going well. I'm willing to see week 2.
Mr. Neurotic next, number 1, calm the hell down. Washington is a playoff team that's designed to absolutely torch a team like MSU. 2, panic time. MSU made one of its least effective position coaches head coach, and we're back in the John L. Smith era. And 3, MSU longs for the days of 7-6. Disappointing season.
Nobody longs for that. Nobody longs for that, even right now, because what people don't want, they want to be anger and they want change, or they want winning. They don't want the mid-level apathy, which also leads to anger, and they want something else. Nobody wants 7-6.
Sean Mike, number 1, I was at the game on Saturday, and the atmosphere felt electric right until the massacre. It gave me Apollo Creed versus Ivan Drago vibes. All right. 2, Michael Penix Jr. will be a successful NFL QB. And 3, the real MVP awards go out to the people who had the patience to wait in line for beer.
I am curious to see Michael Penix as an NFL quarterback. I hope he's somebody who can stay healthy because he looks like a dude who can make all the throws and just sort of has it in terms of accuracy. I really want to see him at the next level, and I'm curious to see if my evaluation of him in college pans out.
Munfield King. Ross L. stinks. It is funny to me that Mel ran a complete to play, compete to stay style program while with the players while letting overpaid coaches and coordinators continue to be awful.
It's a fair point. I'll say this, is that he did say compete to play, compete to stay in his evaluation of players, and you saw most of the coaches say. Now, that means he thought the coaches weren't the issue, and right or wrong, but touche.
Couch on Fire, number 1. Barnett saying he had a plan reminded me of Michael Spink's famous line, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. I thought that was Mike Tyson. 2 MSU upsides. A, 2 good punters, and we will need them. And B, they outscored Washington 7-6 in the second half.
But you're really looking for upsides. That would have been a tough. Think of that as like my third quick take at the end of the game. But like the two punters are really good, and they outscored them in the second half. It's real positive.
It would have made this show worth it.
Yeah, people would just slam it. It would have been something else. Yeah, right. It's a good point though. I mean, what happened with Washington early? Michigan State was on its heels. Whatever you were thinking you were going to do, they were just in trouble.
Zubraka Spartan, number 1, fandom can be hard. This weekend hurt, but let me just say, as a kid who grew up as a Wolverine fan, learned to enjoy the highs through the lows. This is a special fan base, and part of what made D'Antonio so special was remembering the bad times. This too will pass, Spartans. 2, Graham, as a guy acquainted with Kalamazoo, is Groovy Donuts better or worse than Sweetwater? Please answer truthfully. Yeah. 3, is Nathan Carter better than he looked on Saturday or worse than he looked against CMU in Richmond?
Couple things. I love Sweetwater Donuts. We had them at our wedding, my wife and I, like 7 years ago, and because I didn't know about Groovy Donuts yet. And she grew up going to Sweetwater all the time. Groovy Donuts is next level. It just and even in the contest, they tend to beat Sweetwater. I'm just telling you, it's next level. It's just different. Is Nathan Carter better than he looked on Saturday? It's so hard to know. I think he's a legitimately good Big Ten back. What is his ceiling? I don't know. I mean, he just didn't have there's not a lot of push, not a lot of creases. Saw a couple of decent runs when there was one. They're going to lean on him a lot, and so we'll find out.
Matt Venny, number 1, Harlan Barnett looks overwhelmed and confused on the sidelines. He better cherish the next 10 weeks because after that, it's over. 2, this staff is coaching like they're ready to retire from football. Who in the fucking fuck is going to hire that? And 3, MSU needs to do these players a favor and fire Tucker ASAP so they can transfer out and get away from these ridiculous schemes. There are talented guys on this roster who deserve better than what these coordinators are giving them.
I think the timing's actually going to work out well for the players. If the firing happens, after the bye week or mid-October, it gives them a few more weeks to evaluate the situation they're in, and then they'll have 30 days, and they can get in the portal and stay at MSU. And then the guys who haven't transferred before will be able to get in the portal after the season. Like, there's a lot. They're going to have a lot of opportunities. I don't think you don't want guys to make rash decisions. I think I'm not saying that for MSU's sake. I'm saying it for their sake. There's nothing that's really going to hurt them by not being in the portal for another 4 or 5 weeks.
Suburban Spartan Dad, number 1, football is dumb and should be outlawed. This is no way MSU Lions and gambling related. 2, seriously though, I don't think a game has ever sucked any hope out of me like that Washington game. And 3, if MSU beats Maryland, I will convince myself that this team can go bowling again.
Yeah, no, you won't be dead inside. Now, if they beat Maryland, it's a little bit different conversation. I mean, we'll have that conversation on Sunday night, but it's a different conversation.
Lost cause, number 1. Any hope I had for this team could keep things. Any hope I had this team could keep things together went out the window. 2, team was put in a bad spot, but it looked about as bad as it could have Saturday night. And 3, Nathan Carter is not a third Kenneth Walker and running behind this shit line. I'll be shocked Shocked if he makes it to week 6.
I think the big issue is, right, how much pounding can he take? They don't have a lot else at that position. How quickly can Jalen Berger get back? And, it's a little bit of an issue there.
George W., number 1, at least now we know Harlan won't be the permanent head coach. 2, so exciting to bring in a new defensive coordinator who doesn't have this absurd philosophy and launch Hazleton out of town by a catapult. And 3, if the administration goes cheap on the hire, below $6 million, I might be done with MSU football.
I can't imagine that they're going to go cheap here. They want to play ball. They've made that clear. They're going to try and rectify this as best they can.
Cinemod next. Number 1, the Washington game highlights how far we are from competing at a high level. Mel or not, we lose that 10 out of 10 times. And 2, Peacock was not good for viewing. Announcers were terrible. Camera was never in the right spot, etc. And 3, why does everyone rub my wife's pregnant belly and tell her congratulations, but no one pats my balls and says well done? Well, if you went to Hawaii Spa.
Right. You could
where
pay
they pat
somebody.
your balls. Your chicks don't want to touch your balls anyway, even your wife. Dude.
Well, and think about it like this. There's actually a baby. There's a new life inside your wife. Your balls are just these saggy,
they're
hideous things that, yeah, right. There's nothing in there other than your balls. I mean, yeah.
I wish I could detach them and like put them on the wall and like when I go out or something, put them on. They're just so brutally annoying. My bag.
Why is it annoying?
Because I'm getting old and it just hangs down to your feet and it's just brutal.
Interesting.
Yeah. Sleep on your side. Cinemod. G. Miller. Number 1, on paper, this MSU team has enough talent to compete with good Power 5 programs. What we saw Saturday is players who have not been developed by coaches and coordinators who were completely outmatched and had zero answers. Washington was 4-8 2 years ago, and Kalen DeBoer wasn't even there. 2, DeBoer makes $4.4 million, double his salary. 5-year deal. And let's make this rebuild a whole lot easier. We need an X's and O's guy who can compete and then recruit off of that. Just as he is doing right now, we need coaching competence. Keep Hawkins. Get rid of the rest. 3, watching this game on delay was an awful experience with Peacock. Give me cable with DVR every day of the week. I hope streaming only games is a failed experiment and not a new normal.
You did that well. That was a long 3 ones late in the show. The streaming thing is interesting. People are really complaining about it. I'm going to have to watch a Peacock football game. It's so different than soccer. They don't have any of these problems, and so I'm wondering why that is. Is it their own produced thing that's the issue?
It just dropped out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
The wheel of spin.
They should be better than this. And I get, look, this is maybe we just need less money in the sport. If what we want are things that are better, we don't want 10 a.m. West Coast starts because we're all about the money. We don't want 18 teams in a league because we're all about the money and the TV executives. We don't want all this shit. We just have to admit we're a smaller economy for college football and demand that. I don't know, because right now this doesn't seem to be working for everybody.
Quilt Monkey. Number 1, I hated the booze, and we want Hauser chants more than the score. How thick is the irony that Peyton Thorne was under pressure the whole Washington game last year? Then Noah Kim got a garbage time TD, and fans started calling for Kim. 2, is it more lucky or unlucky that this is Harlan Barnett's chance? Probably years before a different chance, but maybe one where he wasn't stuck with someone else's mess to clean up. Seems like a great guy, and it will break my heart if this is the end of his MSU tenure.
You know, I still think this is better. I don't know that he was ever going to get the chance. He's 56 years old. He was the secondary coach at Michigan State. Maybe if the program eventually really took off and all those guys are starting to get looks. But, you know, this is still, while it's a very difficult job to have any shot at retaining the job, the idea that you could become intriguing enough for someone else to hire you, this is probably a better path than any other path that he was going to get. And I didn't realize there were We Want Hauser chants in the. But again, at a certain point, you want something else, and that was
Gavin Haas who started it. Yeah. Alex James, number 1, dismemberment is the only term I can find to accurately describe both of what happened on the field and off of it for MSU this week. 2, has anyone checked on Chad Latz? 3, has anyone checked on Johnny Spirit?
Maybe somebody should introduce Chad and Johnny Spirit. Those two might be friends. They might hit it off. They need each other.
Pearson, number 1. It's time for Alan Haller to make the phone call to Steve Mariucci. What? The phone call to Steve Mariucci, Izzo's best friend and MSU's last hope. 2, if he declines, turn the focus on Adam Gase, MSU's favorite and forgotten son. And 3, if he turns us down, then Matt House, LSU defensive coordinator. Come on down.
I'll be very curious where they go with this, once they decide that that's what needs to be done. There will be a lot of people who want this job. And, again, big hire.
Bo McJunkins, number 1, media in 2018. MSU shouldn't interfere in sexual investigations. Media in 2023. Alan Haller should have done more. Do you see why we're tired of this, Graham? We have faults, but your colleagues won't let us fix this. Good to see Murphy pimp his 2018 report on Coach D again. 2, speaking of those 2018 reports, how much accounted to anything? The guys at D'Antonio kicked off the team immediately. Also, good to see Wojo and Mitch woke up from their naps to write about this, but not Michigan's problems. Sorry, Graham. I'm pissed at the low blows from lazy people. And 3, the injuries are piling up. I'm out on Jason Novak. Year after year of this bullshit is not normal. I don't care if other programs have injuries. We get too many.
I'll say this. There is a piling on that happens with Michigan State that does not happen other places quite the same way. And it becomes, and I don't know if it's, we talked about this last week, and it feels even worse than it probably is because of how people get their news today through social media. And if you're the columnist at the Detroit News or Detroit Free Press or Lansing State Journal, anywhere, you have to write about this. If you're covering this. The problem is with all of them, and then you see it all in social media in one feed, and it's like, oh my God, everybody. But really, it's some people only read this or only read that. And what I keep telling you is mute the name Tucker, mute whatever name you want to mute on social media, and then just go to the site you want to go to. Come to the Lansing State Journal. We'll have you covered. We'll try to take just the Free Press stuff we think is best. Sometimes we include all of it, but we don't include all of it. We don't use the columns and stuff like that. But I'm going to tell you right now, there is a piling on that I don't always agree with, and it sometimes is too easy to do. Not everything is thoughtful and reasonable, 100%.
Welcome to the Blue Wall.
Ryan Rockwell, number 1, the entire Tucker era was a waste of time and money. Kenneth Walker was the only home run, and he was a transfer, not a recruit. 2, a true rebuild requires cleaning the staff out, top to bottom, no holdovers. This is big boy football. And 3, Coach Cap is Mr. Ass.
The Tucker era did turn out. We'll find out if it was a waste of time and money. It'll depend on what from this era emerges into the next era. How many guys stick around? How many of the resources and things that are in place could be helpful. I don't think it's a complete waste of time and money. I disagree with that. You do at some point though. If you're going to rebuild and as soon as you decide you want to do that, it doesn't matter how much you like Carlin Barnett. It doesn't matter how much you want him to succeed. This is big boy football. This is bigger than him. It's about where the program's going to be 3 years from now, and it'll be very obvious whether he should be considered or not.
Some dude next, number 1. Why is Kapilovic so highly regarded? Supposed to be able to make average players good and good players great. 4 years in, and the O-line is complete ass. 2, D'Antonio's job is to be Haller's spy to see if any of this shit is worth salvaging. And 3, the Barry Sanders statue is the finest of all of these types of things I've ever seen with my own eyes.
Barry Sanders statue was kind of cool. It's cool to see how big a deal it was to Barry. That was my favorite part of that, when he was sort of emotional and thought it was a big deal. Like, that's fun for me.
I'm glad it looked like Barry.
Yeah.
I saw it, and I'm like, oh, thank God.
It didn't look like the Magic statue at MSU. Right. No, it was a great.
Fred Sanford.
It was a great statue. 2, one other point you make there, D'Antonio's job is not to be Haller's spy. He was brought in to basically be a sounding board and be an advisor for a guy who'd never been a head coach and those who trust each other. However, I will say this, that D'Antonio and Alan Haller talk a lot. I mean, he's had a role in the administration since then, and I guarantee you at the end of this year that those two will be having conversations about what's going on in the program and what needs to be done. And D'Antonio, I don't think will have a giant say in the next head coach, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is a little bit part of the process.
From the woodshed next, number 1, fuck Mel Tucker. He ruined everything D'Antonio worked so hard to build. I'm dead inside. 2, MSU is a top 20 in revenue, attendance, and is willing to pay a coach and has new facilities on the way. We don't need a MAC coach like Candle or Jim Leonard as our coach. Shoot to the moon and either hand a blank check to Urban Meyer.
Oh, no. They're not doing
Or
that.
another elite coach we poach from elsewhere. 3, how did Noah Kim beat out Katenhauser? Maybe Gavin Haas is onto something. Jay Johnson is ass. Caw.
Okay, let's do number 2 real quick. I'm all about hot takes, but just think about some of the things that Urban Meyer has been dinged for recently. Think about what Michigan State is trying to do in terms of changing its own image on one certain subject. Urban Meyer is not going to be within 300 million feet of that job.
Let's go for it.
Oh, my God.
Tyrone Couch, number 1. Coach Harlan Barnett, bummer of a way to start, but Washington is the best team on the schedule. 2, the game was worse, but this year's MSU is better than last year's MSU, said in President Lady's voice. 3, Mel was really tugging at our heartstrings with his latest response. Tugging. Sorry.
Washington might be the best team on the schedule. From what we've seen from Ohio State so far, there's a real chance of that. Penn State looks pretty good, but not Washington level. And Michigan, who knows? They haven't started their season yet. So, yeah, I would. There's a real chance that is the case. And if you're Michigan State, you're hoping that's the case based on how things looked.
Cucker Tarleson, number 1. MSU will be lucky to win 3 to 4 games if that performance continues. 2, if I was Harlan Barnett, I'd be pissed about D'Antonio being brought back to watch over my shoulder. Clearly, MSU doesn't trust him. And 3, how many clones of yourself would it take to beat Mike Tyson in a 12-round match?
Like all in the ring together?
Like prime Tyson?
I mean, it wouldn't matter how many we had because none of us could take a single punch from him.
I think it would take probably 6 of me. Like, so you can send 3 in as like kamikazes, and then you just try something.
But this is like a legitimate box. 12 rounds, though. You think 6 of you could make it through 12 rounds with Mike Tyson?
Absolutely not. I'm just trying to get this show over with.
No, by the way, I don't. If you're Harlan Barnett, you want D'Antonio because, first of all, and you can't care all that much. You have to. You don't know how to be a head coach. You've never been a head coach. You may have ideas, but having D'Antonio is not threatening. He's a guy who's been a sounding board before. I think having D'Antonio there is incredibly helpful. I think Barnett welcomes it.
Rich Searing, number 1. We're going to lose players and recruits after that debacle. Whoever gets the job will be looking at a very long-term bottom-to-top rebuild. Clean it all out, burn it all down, and rebuild. 2, I don't see a bowl game for this team. And 3, Jay Johnson's play calling was better. I can see what he was trying to do, but our line is terrible, and we just don't have the guys to compete with the big boys. QB sneak?
He did do that.
Jay Johnson?
Yeah, that was turning a new page. No jet sweep, no Mark D'Antonio special. Was a little disappointed in that. I do think when you don't have the line up front, life is tough. Now, that just might be their reality, and that it's going to make it a long season if that's the case. You also got to hope Washington's line is just better than everybody realized. And I don't. That's the worst part of this for Michigan State is that up front there, they don't have a group that's going to give them a chance to be anything offensively. And when you have young quarterbacks and young receivers and a new running back who's not Kenneth Walker, you need those guys to be better than they are.
Senior Riverboat Tubin, number 1. I'm excited for Herb. Lats is DC. 2, Pat's red jerseys are the best in the league. And 3, the Tuck story is so insane that I think there's a long shot chance we get a South Park episode out of it. Perhaps Tuck and Tubin at Tiger Woods sex rehab in Mississippi.
Man.
Too soon?
I do like the Patriots red jerseys. I like a lot of the throwback stuff. Like, yeah, it's just, yeah. Give me the Broncos orange with the old helmets, the Dolphins, like, not teal, whatever that, bluish green thing is.
Tampa Bay. When
they're home. The old cream Tampa Bay. Yeah. Man, the old, maybe it's just we're old. Maybe it's just, I just like 80s NFL uniforms because that's what I grew up on. That must be it.
1,000%. Zeke's fan page next. Number 1, real fans will survive several depressing years, even a decade of MSU football, and come out stronger than ever, similar to the Lions. We're stronger than ever. 2, Zeke, the wonder dog, is still here to make us all happy. And 3, what would you give for an MSU football or basketball natty? A pinky? Money?
I wouldn't give anything, but what would you give?
I'm not giving shit. A pinky? Money? No.
Yeah.
No, thanks. The Lions? No. We could talk pinky for Super Bowl.
Would you do a pinky for the Lions Super Bowl?
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing, or just like a digit, like a little, like right off the top, like Ronnie Lott.
Like just off the top.
All right.
You do it for Super Bowl? Okay.
Shit, I'd probably do that for $5,000. Dark Mantonio, number 1. On Andy Staples' show, Graham, you brought up Mel's good recruiting. Please don't go on a national shows with that narrative, Couch. You'll get laughed off. Either you don't know recruiting or you're lying to yourself and the listeners. Just before you came on, Andy himself mentioned Tuck's lack of recruiting. Still love you, though. 2, boy, I wish Colorado had lost. I'm ready for this circus of a hype train to be over. I stayed up till 2:30 to watch them lose, but that schedule is about to get tough, and their winning won't last. And 3, had a question that you didn't include on Friday's show asking if we should slow down on Noah Kim until he played a real team. I may have been right.
To number 1, let me tell you about national writers and national media. What they don't know is really the intimate details of anything, of any one team. It's why the Athletic idea behind the Athletic was so good originally, that you had great writers on local teams, and then you had the idea of a great writer and the passion of the fan base, and together you had a winning combination. They sold out, went to the national brand idea and whatever, and it's less effective because you can't pay attention to everything. Andy Staples doesn't know. Michigan State's had 2 recruiting classes in a row that, in terms of number of 4 stars, is up there with just about anything they've ever had. And so there have been good recruiting classes. Are they great recruiting classes? We don't know yet. But there's definitely was an uptick in recruiting, and it was different type of recruiting. And so Andy may think one thing or another, and it's fine. He can look at the rankings and what. But I'm telling you right now, if he looked at the 4 stars and he knew the history of who D'Antonio had, he would understand for Michigan State, this was a serious uptick in recruiting. Like most national writers, he doesn't know that. And that's not his fault. It's just the job. It's not a job that has really any meaning. I'm sorry, I'd take that part out. That last part's mean. Yeah.
I'm going to put it up front. Ghost of George Perlis. Number 1, this team is so bad that a grown-ass man had to jack off into a phone to get out of coaching them. 2, East Lansing area restaurants will now use the term 713'd instead of 86'd when out of something.
Ouch.
3, after the game with a heavy heart, I entered the transfer portal.
Yeah, I have a feeling that a few people.
Where are you going, to Mac school? Where are you going? Tell us what. Colorado? By the way, what's wrong? Why can't you root for – what is so bad about Deion and the Colorado thing? It's not like Michigan State plays them or something like that. I mean, it was a
fun story.
It was so fun to watch that game until 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah, no, I don't really get the – I mean, maybe there's some – for some people there might be just this outlandish – black man racial stuff. I don't know.
No,
but I think for some people it's just Deion turns them off, and I don't think he's turned off Tim McCarver for years, and so I'm not. If Deion's not your cup of tea, I can understand it getting annoying.
You're
too.
a real man, Deion.
Yeah,
I remember that. Hans Jurgen, number 1, fuck Peacock. 2, if the offensive line doesn't improve, Kim won't survive the season. And 3, I hope no MSU players listen to this podcast or read tweets for that matter. And bonus, if we lose to Maryland, we won't go bowling this year.
Probably true. I think more important is they're very competitive against Maryland, because I picked them to go 6-6, and that was with losses to Maryland and Iowa, and that was before all of this. So there is a path. The one thing that's a little different is Rutgers looks better than I anticipated. So I think there needs to be signs of a competitive roster.
Jake Hawkins, number 1. Aside from Saturday being the absolute worst MSU football performance and loss ever, I've never seen a game where so much laundry was being thrown on the field from both teams committing penalties, including one where the ref had to use his hat as a flag. Good God almighty. 2, MSU's football coaching staff is starting to feel like a retirement home and country club. Only 2 guys went to the head coaches at other schools during the good years. It's ridiculous that Kalen DeBoer was an assistant at smaller schools and is now leading a top 10 college football team. 3, the only positives from Saturday was my mom, who's a Michigan fan, got free tickets, and we got free parking, went to a tailgate where there was free food and booze. The team walked by, and the time spent with her.
Well, that sounds like a hell of a day, other than the game. I mean, that's the...
Did you spend any money?
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive.
Sounds like a hell of a day. I mean, other than...
Everything's free?
On the game. To your point, though, a lot of people say, it's ridiculous that DeBoer came from some smaller schools. There are lots of great coaches at smaller schools. They have to be unearthed. It's sort of like
Brian Kelly went.
Yeah, I mean, he was a really good coach at Grand Valley, great coach at Central Michigan. It just takes athletic directors time to understand who a great coach is. Brian Kelly would have been a great hire at Notre Dame from Central Michigan, but he had to go to Cincinnati because ADs aren't actually often that bright. They have to, like, see it done right in front of their eyes at a step just below them consistently.
Well, like you say, their job's on the line for a hire. You have to.
And then they go get a search firm, too, and it's like, okay.
Dude, how do we get on the search firm? That's all I want. Jerk guy to end this thing, thank God. Number 1, Michigan State should give up on football, accept a middling product, and pump the money to other places. 2, regardless of what sports writers say, the UMAA bias in media within Michigan has been evident since Joe Falls. The fact that it continues to be denied shows that no one has looked at it seriously. And 3, social media has been the worst thing for American society, and it's our barbarians at the gate. Just because you have an opinion doesn't mean it's good or even know what the hell you're talking about. I miss the days when stupid people were embarrassed by their stupidity.
It's well said.
Well, I guess I'm old school. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah.
Sometimes. For sure.
We appreciate all of you and your many hot takes. There's some fantastic stuff in there. You did a nice job getting through all that today, man.
Sweetheart.
Well done. We appreciate Muskox. Go to gomuskox.com and check out their latest offerings, their fall offerings, some great flannels. The Caper Green is my new favorite. Again, gomuskox.com. Use the promo code HOFF, H-O-F-F, for $15 off. We appreciate Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing. Go to midtownbrewing.net. Check out their menu. Great place to get a beer, a date night, brunch on the weekends, trivia on Tuesday nights. We will be back at some point this week and talk about more of this stuff. So, good show, man.
Yeah, man.
Couch through.